folks, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Hope you're doing well out there. On this episode, we talked to Mr. Menno Verbaten. He's originally from the Netherlands, made his way out to Los Angeles and attended school at MI, where he met up with Skunk and his brother. He then taught at the school for 18 years. He's played bass guitar and sung with several bands, including the Caurterized, Cryptic Slaughter, and most recently the progressive doom band Behold the Monolith. This is definitely a podcast for metalheads if you like Metallica, Megadeth, Anthrax, Maiden, Sabbath. We also talk about Bob Daisley's book, For Fact's Sake, and why Sharon Osbourne hates him so much. We talk about the Monsters of Rock cruise, and many other things on this podcast. As always, we'd like to thank our friends at Godin Guitars, Tragan Guitars, Ernie Ball Strings, and 5 Iron Woodworks. Make sure and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of our social media pages, whatever those damn things are, and sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
I want to tell you a little story. Someone lives in my town. You might see him out there walking around. So come on, get down. Face and a cool Castro, and when the pussy's on the prowl, watch out for Mr. Peanut.
All right.
Yo. What's up? Episode 41 with a really awkward, strange intro.
You started off in the wrong hole, so.
Yeah, I started off in the wrong hole. It's been one of those days. Had my headphones plugged in wrong. Took us some time to very basic. It's like Sling Blade. Remember that movie Sling Blade? You guys seen that? And he's such a genius at fixing. The guy's like, I can't figure out what's wrong with the lawnmower, and then he's like, there ain't no gas in it. It's always the mic, like you're troubleshooting all this bullshit. It's always like, is your cable plugged in? I've had that happen on. Has that ever happened to you guys? You Menno, like, am I saying your name right? First of all, we are here with our guest, Menno Verbaten.
That is correct, 100%.
From the Netherlands.
Absolutely, born and raised.
Born and raised in the Netherlands. Wow, it's like when most people think of the Netherlands, I think we just think of like Amsterdam, right? And partying and drugs, legal drugs and prostitutes and putting it in whatever hole you feel like and everything's legal. Right?
Yeah, if you pay the right price.
So
it's not the only thing though, but I mean,
no, I know.
It's there. It's not a myth.
But that's how people like to think though. Like I'm sure there's all kinds of different things happening in the Netherlands, but we go, oh, Amsterdam party, mushrooms.
Well, I was just talking to Vic about that, about some museums and art, and there's a lot of stuff like that too, because it's an old city, and there's a lot of things still standing there from those times. So
it's the country itself is pretty small, and
it's tiny,
right? And then what's the population there? Do you know?
You guys are both in Texas, right?
Right.
I mean, you can probably fit like 50 Netherlands into the state of Texas.
Wow.
Yeah, the Netherlands is basically like the size of the like Houston or Dallas, Fort Worth metroplex areas.
It's tiny. It's tiny. The population, I think, right now, it probably decreased a little bit over the last year, but about 17 million. It's pretty densely populated.
It is, yeah. And And then the language there, the Dutch, or what's the...
Dutch, yeah.
Dutch.
Kind of like in between, like we're geographically right in between England, and then there's some water, and Germany, and the language is a mix between German and English.
Interesting.
Kind of.
Yeah, I didn't really ever know what the deal was with Dutch, the language.
Well, not many people do because there's so few people that speak it. You know, why would you learn Dutch? Even if you go to Holland, almost everybody speaks English fairly well because we are such a small country and we can't expect people to speak our language. So we just accommodate.
I feel like that's a lot of countries in Europe and, you know, various places in the world. A lot of European countries, I think they learn English, right?
Well,
it's almost like so many people are bilingual there, right?
You kind of have to because English is kind of the international language nowadays. So you got to, you know, either pick English, Spanish, or Chinese. But I think China, you know, Chinese only works in China, really. Spanish and English are the way to go. And I think English is still a little bit more of the common language.
Because America's the best.
There you go. Hey, there's a reason
Texas.
why I'm here and not there.
Yeah. So what brought you to, when did you start playing? Tell us about your origins becoming a musician. And I know you as a bass player, you play bass. Do you play other instruments as well? Was that your first instruments? Did you start on anything else? What's the story there?
I wanted to start on bass, but I lived in a small town in Holland and they had like a small music school and the only thing they offered there was classical guitar. So since I was about 14 and my parents insisted that if I was going to learn an instrument, I take at least a year of lessons. So the only thing that was available was acoustic guitar. So I got literally the cheapest classical guitar that you could possibly find. I think it was $30 and got made fun of every lesson by my teacher for having such a shitty guitar.
I've been there.
And to which my reply was, well, I don't even want to play guitar. I want to play bass. To which his reply was, well, then just play the lowest 4 strings and we'll figure it out. So I kept that up for about a year and he was a really cool dude, even though he made fun of me, but you know, I kind of deserved that. And he taught me some basics. And then when the year was done, I was like, okay, screw this. I had my paper routes and everything, and I just bought myself a bass. So technically, bass is my first instrument, but guitar was in there a little bit before that, just because out of necessity. But I always wanted to play bass. You know, the first time I heard Cliff Burton and Steve Harris, I was like, that's what I want to do.
Cool. Awesome. Who are those guys?
I'm
just kidding.
One of them's dead, so
country stars.
Yeah,
dude. I know. Like, you know what's funny about Cliff Burton? I mean, you kind of get the standard answers, and for good reason. I mean, Cliff Burton, same here. I mean, Metallica for all of us, I think.
Oh yeah.
In kids today too, it just never has changed. Like they've been influencing people for 35 whatever years, and it's like there's something about. I mean, they have this like stuff like Battery and, you know, Dyer's Eve and, you know, stuff that's just like fucking brutally fast and, you know, all that kind of great stuff. But then they have all those riffs that like a beginner can manage. And I think that's one thing that's made them so great and popular. I mean, great management, great songs across the board. But the fact that they had these accessible songs that you could play when you're starting out, like For Whom the Bell Tolls, and not everything was Master of Puppets. You know, there was like manageable stuff. And I don't know if that was an intentional thing or they just, that happened. But for whatever reason, man, I think we all started there on that stuff. And obviously Cliff Burton's just like a massive influence to anybody who's bassist and guitar players, I think, you know. Oh, yeah. Shit, I didn't even know that originally that the For Whom the Bell Tolls, you know, intro was bass, you know.
I know.
Right?
It's crazy. All these like cool little bass intros like Damage Incorporated.
Yeah.
Even in the official guitar book, it has it transcribed as guitar, and in the bass book, it's just not there.
With
Same
what?
with
Are you talking about the swells or what?
Oh.
Yeah, that's all bass.
Oh, damn!
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's all Cliff.
I learned something there too.
That's actually based on a Bach piece because he was a huge classical guy.
Yeah.
And it's a Bach organ piece called "Come Sweet Death."
Wow. Okay.
And if you listen to it, you can hear, because it has like volume swells kind of in there too, and the chords, and it's all there. He just basically just translated that to bass.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome, man. I mean, Master of Puppets is just such a masterpiece. And I'm one of those guys that I don't subscribe to the selling out with the Black Album. I think that's, to me, those are the top 2 Metallica albums. I mean, it's so hard to pick. I think all their early stuff is amazing, but Master of Puppets is just such a great, for its time, sonically, it sounds so good. And it's just like the songwriting. And so much of that is Cliff. Yeah. I mean, you got stuff like Orion. They've never, I mean, that's one of the most brilliant compositions ever. And I think obviously Cliff had to have had a heavy hand in those kind of tunes and that kind of classical, like you said, that classical writing, man. And
the accessibility
not
too,
Hetfield,
right? Like you were just mentioning. Like it's not too hard. It's not Master of Puppets, but it's still accessible, right? But with enough. Yeah.
Absolutely. And
I loved all those instrumentals on those early, like Call of Cthulhu, although that might have been some Mustaine in there. It's got the little Hanger 18 progression, right?
Oh, yeah. That's a Mustaine song for sure.
And then you got, but Orion, Cliff Burton all the way. And yeah, man. So you said Cliff Burton and then obviously Steve Harris from Iron Maiden, right? Like huge band leader, big guy. So Steve Harris is definitely a big one. Everybody, obviously, Geddy Lee, used to hear Les Claypool back in the day. Flea. I mean, there's a zillion good bass players. But coming from a rock standpoint, what are some of your other big influences?
Well, Lemmy. You have to go for Lemmy. I mean, that guy was, even though he's not like a Geddy Lee or like a bass wizard, just his approach to everything, but also the bass is just so badass.
He just is rock and roll. Like he's just a fucking born rock star. What I love about Lemmy too, and Ozzy's the same way. Those guys are like massive, or was, when he was a massive Beatles fan, and just that respect for that classic rock, which, that whole thing kind of came from the blues, and those sensibilities. So I think even when you got into, it's funny now you think of like Motorhead or early Ozzy, but that's not metal the way you would think of it now, right? It's like hard rock, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, those guys, and I'm actually wearing, I'm wearing a Typo Negative shirt, and to me, Typo Negative is a band that I absolutely love, and that's another band I think they really did their own thing and had their own style, and they got kind of like called goth, which is, I mean, some of it kind of tongue-in-cheek gothy stuff, sort of. But there's one thing I love about them is how much they took from classic rock bands, and they always covered all these old Beatles and Doors and whatever, right? They always did all these. Every time I saw them live, they do like CCR, or Doors, or they had a Beatles medley on an album, and you hear it in their songs too. You hear that Floyd influence and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think those are kind of like basics that you have to at least admit that, they're important. You don't even have to like them, but, I think as a musician, when you listen to the Beatles or, bands like that, they laid the groundwork. So, I mean, you have to respect that. Yeah.
Is there any like mega bands like that you're kind of like, I respect it, but I'm not really into it? Or, I mean, you're a metal guy from the get-go. Are you still?
Oh, yeah.
And I know you've been in metal bands and done a lot of that kind of stuff, but are there other styles that you really, really dig and love too? Or what's?
Yeah, all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's of course as a musician, right?
I was commenting on like a Instagram thing that I posted like a Parliament Funkadelic thing the other day. Mm-hmm. And this friend of mine's like, oh, I love that you all do all these different styles. And I was kind of thinking about it. And it's like, I said, music's kind of like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Those huge all-you-can-eat buffets. They have all these different things. You get your Chinese food, you got your Japanese food, you got your burgers, you got, I like it all. You can't just stick with just burgers because, there's sushi and there's chow mein and, I just love it all. If it's done well, I probably like it. I'm not the hugest jazz guy, but I can listen or, play to that stuff and appreciate it. Mm-hmm. I was never, until fairly recently, the biggest classical guy, but, since this whole pandemic started, I've been diving into that and loving that too. I mean, there's so much stuff. Metal is always going to be in the heart. You know, that's the core. That's the basis for everything. That's the reason, like Steve Harris and Cliff Burton, that I started playing music.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, I started the same way with metal, but I was in metal. What's cool about it, and a lot of guys will, say this, is it has those classical elements. There's definitely, I think, a lot of metal guys, guitar players, and are oftentimes influenced by that. You listen to like some Beethoven stuff and whatnot. I mean, that's fucking metal done, however many 100 years in the 1800s and shit. It's awesome, And I think there's that classical aspect, and a lot of guys are big Baroque guys, and there's all those classical Baroque type elements in a lot of metal. But in the a lot of the newer stuff maybe is super, super technical. But I'm thinking back to kind of some of the stuff we were discussing. What's cool about that stuff is you got those classical elements, but then you also got a little bit of that bleeding from that British invasion that took from the blues, right? And you have this awesome hybrid of musical styles, I think, that kind of cultivated to that, huge genre of hard rock metal.
Sure. I mean, even like way back with the classic rock with Ritchie Blackmore, he was and Deep Purple playing with an orchestra, but they were still, for that time, a pretty heavy band.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good reference there. What do you listen to? So what have you been listening to lately, classical wise?
Well, hold on, let me put this cat away. It's kind of a long answer in a way. Do you guys know the movie Master and Commander?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's from like 2003, Russell Crowe, Paul Bettany, and all that.
There was also a great Family Guy spoof on that where it was Masturbator and Commander. Did you ever see that?
Man. I haven't seen it. I'll have to check that out.
Oh, dude, it was hilarious. They kept knocking on the captain's quarters. And he was like, be right out. Yeah, I do remember that movie.
All right. So that movie is based on a series of books. Mm-hmm. And in those books, I don't know if you've seen the movie, but if you've seen the movie, Russell Crowe is the captain. Paul Bettany is his friend and the ship surgeon. And when they're not blowing French ships out of the water, they play music. One plays violin, the other one plays cello. And they play all this classical music. So this movie is based on a whole series of like 20 books. So I got those books and started reading them. And the author, he just goes on and on about all these classical composers and composers I had never heard of. I mean, I heard of Beethoven and Bach and Mozart and all that, but I never really, delved that deep into it. And he's, talking about Boccherini and Lucatelli and all these Italian guys. So because of those books, I started looking into that. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And then when the whole lockdown thing happened and I couldn't go and, play with other people, basically, I'm like, okay, what can I record at home that doesn't require drums? Because at that time, and I'm still not great at it, wasn't really able to program drums. So all I had was a bass and a means to record a bass. So, you can't do metal because metal has drums. You can't do funk because funk has drums. All modern music has some kind of drum thing going on. It's like, classical usually doesn't have drums, so maybe I can try my hand at some classical pieces. I took this 5-string bass, and instead of a low B, I put a high C string on there, so I can get more in the cello and violin range, and found a bunch of sheet music online and started chipping away at it.
Wow. So now, I mean, that's impressive. I obviously to play a bass and then blame the classical melodies and stuff. That's awesome. But so your bass is tuned E, A, D, G, C. So it's all fourths.
Yep.
Yeah, I was having that conversation with someone the other day about guitar tuning and stuff. And, the anomaly of the B string being tuned to a major third where everything is also fourth. And I was like, but, there are a few guys that do that. I was like, basses are like that because you have the low B and then B to E is a fourth. And then if you go to a 6-string bass, that is a C, right? That's how it's tuned?
Correct. Yeah.
So it's all fourths. And Stanley Jordan, right? Guitar player who plays like piano. I know he tunes in fourths all the way. So you have C and F up top. And that's interesting.
That makes sense because the open high E string is for the chords, for strumming the chords. It doesn't make sense to have an F on top because then all your cowboy chords, so to speak, don't work anymore. But he only does like that thing. So for him, it doesn't really matter. So that I never knew that. That's interesting. It makes total sense too. And since I don't have a string above the C, it wouldn't make sense for me to tune it to B.
Right. Well, as a bass player, typically playing less. I mean, you may play double stops and some triadic stuff, but typically as a bass player, you're not playing big chords where you're playing 4 or 5 strings most of the time, right? I mean, that's pretty rare. So it makes a lot of sense that you would just have it symmetrical like that and not have that. There's no need to have that tuning of a third there, because then when you go up into upper octaves, you're actually doing the same patterns. Nothing changes. That's one of the worst parts about when you're explaining guitar and you sort of get that button. You're like, cool now. And so this is always the case for a power chord shape and always the case for that scale, except once you get to that, and then it's like, and then everything's fucked because of the B string.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why. I mean, I play guitar too. I have a couple guitars, and but it always stumps me when I get to that B string. The pattern changes. I'm like, I have all those patterns, but now I got to shift one fret because it doesn't work. And
yeah, I mean, I think that's so true. Like if not for, I mean, certainly there was development of that over centuries, and that standard tuning had to become where they're like, okay, these open shape, this makes the most sense in the move. So I'm sure there's a lot of logic to it, but yeah, as someone who, if you're not playing chords, it seems pointless. Why would you alter something when you could just keep an exact same pattern up into the next octave?
Yeah. So
cool,
I guess if you would just be a lead guitar player and never play rhythm, you could probably do that and make more sense. But most guitar players don't.
Yeah, well, there's those metal guys. I think I read this about Scott Ian once, and I mean, not to discount Scott Ian at all. He's a legend in his own right, and the whole Anthrax and everything. But man, I saw him with Mr. Bungle, and I was like, holy fucking shit, dude. I was impressed. I mean, all those guys are like, got to be at least 50 now, and they're killing it, man. That was just like a thrash-tastic, just hour and a half, 2 hours of just brutal old school thrash. It was awesome. But
everybody's been telling me about it. I haven't checked it out. I need to do that.
It was badass, man. It was nothing like, I don't know if you know the original, Bungle catalog, their 3 albums. Nothing like any of that. It's just all thrash metal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's my roots. So
yeah, it was really, really cool to see. I mean, Mike Patton was just like, okay, y'all aren't going to know any of this. It's just like, and it was just like an assault for an hour and a half. And then they did like a little bit in the middle where they played, the Seals and Crofts Summer Breeze tune, which is a song that Typo covered and was kind of known for. But in a Typo style, they did it like really like the original. And, so there Scott Ian had to play chords and stuff. But I think back to the point is like, once upon a time, I felt like Scott Ian was one of those guys that's like, oh yeah, I don't even use the top 2 strings. You know what I mean? I just fucking, it's all power chord riff shit.
I don't think
no need for it.
Ever plays lead, even on SOD, those guitar solos. That's the drummer. That's Charlie.
Charlie Benante did that.
Yeah, he writes most of the stuff. He's a badass guitar player. He writes most of the Anthrax riffs too.
That's why the guitar and the drums flow so well together. It's just got this really cool sound. And then
that is really cool.
I guess, does he do the studio recordings? I wonder, because I know back in the day Dan Spitz was more the lead guy. And I don't remember that.
Yeah, I think when Dan Spitz left, he did some leads, and then Dimebag did some leads too. But I think Charlie does play some leads on some Anthrax records too.
Wow, that's all right. I'm learning a lot on this podcast.
He's a talented man.
He's been doing on his YouTube channel, just covering different tunes from different artists. Like they did an Alice in Chains one. He got back together with John Bush, and they did one of the songs from Sound of White Noise. I think it was Package Rebellion. So it was nice. It was just John and Charlie, and I think he was either on a acoustic or maybe just solo electric. But yeah, you're really impressive.
Yeah, Charlie's a talented guy for sure. He's I mean, you usually don't think of the drummer as the guy who writes the music, but he is one of those guys.
Well, I mean, and a lot of people shit on Lars, and a lot of drummers are like, Lars sucks. But to give, and Lars can come off a little cocky or douchey sometimes, but to his credit, I think so, like, James, well, that was back in the day when he did the hair flips. Now he doesn't have hair.
Shark Tanks.
But yeah. But you see that's Metallica's drummer. He can't even afford a new. Is that what you're referencing? Is that a South Park?
Yeah. Was it the Napster thing?
Because of Napster, he can't afford a new Shark Tank. Back then, I was like, fuck Metallica. They've already got all the money. What are they? And now I'm like, man, fucking right on for those guys looking out, because it was actually looking out for guys like us. I mean, doesn't matter now. You get, pennies, not even pennies on streams anyway, and that's what the world is. But I mean, back then it's like
5 pennies or something.
Yeah. I mean, that was before I was a musician with stuff to sell and working and playing and had music and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, whatever, you've already. But now I'm like, I get what their fight was, and so props to them. But back to Lars, it's like, I mean, his as a songwriter and the arranger, I don't know if he really plays. I'm sure most guys can strum some chords and shit, but yeah, I mean, he's definitely a writing force. It's not like he just bangs on the drums. He's really integral in the songwriting process and the arrangements.
He's such an. I mean, without Lars, no Metallica. I mean, Lars is the guy. I mean, he's the Gene Simmons. He's like the brains. Even if James does write all the riffs, I have no idea. Maybe he does, but Lars is the guy that put Metallica. I mean, he came up with the whole idea. Put Metallica on the map, made Metallica famous, and is still the driving force behind it. Yeah. So
he's the business guy for sure.
Yeah, I make fun of him too, a lot, but I mean, the guy deserves all the respect.
I think that about guys like Lars, Dave Mustaine, Axl Rose, and they get shit on a lot. And when you're that big, you're gonna get shit on. You're gonna get whatever. But the same people that talk shit about you still listen to your records and love your old records. And you can say you sold out and this record blows, and that it doesn't matter. They wrote some of the most iconic, great music ever in this.
I'm not a fan of a lot of the later Metallica recorca Not at all. Not at all. Like, not even a little bit.
Some of the worst music that's Metallica is so fascinating because they have written some of the greatest rock albums of all time, period. Undisputable.
And period. Some of the worst
but
garbage.
Also Saint Anger is just I've tried. It is unlistenable crap. I don't understand it at all. I tried it's
and then there's Lulu.
That Lulu doesn't make any sense to me either. I don't understand what that was all about.
No, I don't think anybody does. I mean, granted, I've only listened to about, I think between 10 and 20 seconds of the whole thing.
Well, that's about as much as you can get through on that album or Saint Anger. Yeah.
It's just stupid. But yeah, you're right. They wrote some of the best stuff ever and some of the worst stuff. But they deserve every penny of whatever they have in their bank accounts. They, Lars and James and Kirk, they deserve it.
And I give them credit too one thing I'll say is, like, even though they're bombed hard with that stuff, it doesn't matter. It obviously hasn't ever hurt them that much. But I mean, to also on the, so some of the things they've tried are unlistenable garbage to, I think, most people. But I thought it was really cool that they did that thing with Lady Gaga. I mean, James got fucked when they didn't have his mic on or whatever the hell, but like, and then what was the guy, Lang Lang or Ling Lang? I can't remember. The pianist, great piano player. I dove into that guy for a while. Was watching a lot of his videos, man. A phenomenal pianist that they did. So they've always kind of been really cool about, I think once they got in the Bob Rock era and the Black Album, post Black Album. I mean, as much as they've done horrible stuff, that one thing that's probably helped keep them relevant. Well, two things: they're always great live. They've been just a fantastic live. They're not the tightest live band, but they're just great. They're just great performers, great energy, great songs. They never, so they're always great live.
Their set is usually like 80% Black Album and backwards. They know that fans don't want to hear anything off of Saint Anger. Or Load
Thank
or
Christ.
Reload or whatever,
So to be fair, when those came out, the Load albums, I was like, God, ugh. I remember when the Until It Sleeps video came out, and I was like, it was a weird video, and the guitar solo sucked, and I was so disappointed. But I love about half that album. I think it's a pretty decent album. I think sonically it's a great album.
Really, how do you turn this thing off?
You're one of those. I checked out after Black Album. Hey, I don't blame you at all, dude. So I'll give credit.
I checked out when the Black Album came out. When I heard Enter Sandman, I checked out.
Okay,
I can listen to about 50% of the Black Album.
So the Black Album, okay, so let's throw away Enter Sandman, which was played into the ground.
Unforgiven, Unforgiven was played, I think, way more.
Played into the ground. Great song, though. Great, we can,
I like that one.
Sell out preppy boys listening to nothing. I remember me and Dave back in high school. Like, oh yeah, now you're listening to Metallica Poser. We're the real guys.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I had the same thing. When the Black Album came out, and all of a sudden, all these kids that hated me and my metalhead friends were like, "Oh yeah, now we're like
nothing
you,
else
man.
matters,
we listen to Metallica." Bro. Yeah,
you listen to that new band Metallica.
Listen, nothing else. Oh, I remember that. I remember going to our first concert. Me and Dave went to see. It was fucking amazing. Metallica, Guns N' Roses, and Faith No More. And to this day, 3 of my favorite bands still. I mean, huge influence for me. I mean, Slash is I could pretty much cite as the reason I started playing guitar. Appetite for Destruction, and then Metallica, and got into all that stuff. And those are still just like massive influences. Great, amazing fucking concert. But we went with this total fucking tool who turned out to be a fucking psychopath later on in life. I won't go down that road, but this guy that we went in high school with, like all the chicks wanted to fuck him because he looked like Vanilla Ice. This is dating things, right? Like he just looked like such a douchebag, but for some dumb reason we hung out with this guy and we went to see this concert with him. And he was I remember they opened with Creeping Death, and I jumped up on the fucking chair and got my foot stuck in the folding chair at the Astrodome, was moshing and going crazy. And so then as a joke, when Guns N' Roses ended up closing that night and came on and they were playing Don't Cry, I was like, oh, we should mosh it. And straight up this dude was like, that was the one song he was like rocking out to. And I'm like, you fucking poser. But
was that the one?
Dude, are you a big...
go ahead. No, I was going to ask, was that the dude with the girlfriend that looked like a Canadian musician?
No, that was, oh man, our what was that? Our second so the third podcast, we talked with my old buddy, and we used to know this guy in high school who was like older than us, and we kind of looked up to him, but he was kind of a douche, and we tried to jam with him once, and he was just kind of a douche, but he was a huge Steve Harris Iron Maiden fan. And then the end of the podcast ended up being this whole thing about us talking about his not so pretty girlfriend who looked like looked like a short Geddy Lee. Anyway, poor girl. I was going to ask if you were a Megadeth fan, man.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
In my opinion, where Metallica fell short in the 90s and started kind of because I like Load pretty well. Reload, Saint Anger, garbage. Honestly, I wasn't super into what was that album they put out in 2008?
Death Magnetic.
Yeah, it's all right.
It just sounded so horrible.
It's a garbage. I mean, it's like clipping, man. It's terrible.
They finally fixed it with that latest one, which is okay. I
think the latest one's the best thing. Yeah, it's the best thing they've done since Load, in my opinion.
It's definitely, at least sonically it sounds like a metal band again, and it sounds like they were trying to put out a good album.
Well, yeah, and I feel like the songs are a little more cohesive. Like, to me, Death Magnetic, there's good moments on that album, maybe a good song or two, I don't know it super well, but like, I just feel like they were trying to go back, and maybe that's what Rick Rubin did, and they were like, you got to get back to your Injustice and all that, and I felt like that album was like, and now we're going to take this riff from Master of Puppets, and then we're gonna throw it just sounded like a bunch of riffs crammed together, right? It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I didn't think the songs were cohesive and great.
Well, what bugs me the most about like the recent 2 Metallica albums, I guess Death Magnetic, the sound too, but they have Robert Trujillo on bass now, who is a magnificent bass player. The guy is truly talented.
And a classical guitar, anything. Yeah, that guy's just a beast.
Exactly. Just all around excellent musician. I was a huge fan of Infectious Grooves.
Suicidal back in the day. Yeah, Suicidal. I saw Metallica and Suicidal opened up in 96. Yeah.
Right? Amazing stuff. Now, how many cool bass licks are on the last 2 Metallica albums?
Yeah, where are those? You're right. Where are those moments? Where are those? Like, okay, back to the Black Album, right? I think like we don't throw out Inner Sandman. And I think they're all great songs. I pretty much like every song on that album. But like, let's get rid of the hits that were played into the ground, and then go, man, stuff like My Friend in Misery. That is a fucking great song. You know, God That Failed. I mean, they finally let Newstead shine on that on that album.
And he had some moments, right?
Really great
Maybe
stuff.
Not like as deep as Cliff would have, but then again, as much as I love Newstead, and I still think he is, since we can't have Cliff, he is the bassist for Metallica, not Trujillo. As much as I admire him as a person, as a musician, I think Newstead will always be the better fit. But Newstead is not the most technical, crazy bass player. The first time I saw Metallica live was on the Injustice tour. Unfortunately, I just missed the whole Cliff thing. And they had him play, I don't know if they forced him to, but he played the whole Anesthesia thing.
Oh, wow.
And it just didn't sit right with me. I mean, he pulled it off, but it just didn't work for him. Yeah. Next time I saw him on the tour right after that, and they just cut that whole thing out. Because Newstead is not that bass player. He's not like the lead bass player. He is an incredibly strong, rhythmic. If you've ever listened to the isolated tracks from Injustice for All that you can't hear on the record, he is just fantastic.
What a shame!
Tight.
What a shame!
Because it's ultimate shame.
And I have I've heard it said like, and I thought this was kind of a cool comment. This was from Rom, drummer I played with with my band for years. Just a fantastic drummer here in Austin, but. He one time we were talking about Injustice and that whole bass trash, and he's like, "Oh, I love that album though." He's like, because it's so unique and so different. And that kind of back to Metallica trying different stuff. Now, I think they probably did that because they were like, "Fuck you, new guy, you're not Cliff." You know what I mean? And so now what Rom said is kind of a cool, thought is it isn't a unique album. I mean, an album with no goddamn bass, essentially. I mean, and it's just guitars up your ass, rhythm guitars, the tight, everything, precision. It's got its very unique sonic quality. But yeah, I mean, why even have Newstead play on the fucking thing, Think about all the time that guy had to practice that shit. I'd quit fucking Metallica too. I say that now. I mean, would you really quit Metallica?
No, nobody quits Metallica unless
he got pretty mistreated from what I heard.
He quit when he had enough money. I don't think he quit because of the money. I think it was a genuine decision. But if he would have quit after Injustice, then there goes your career. Yeah, but you know what? And he did the Black Album and he did the Load stuff. And with Jason Newsted, if you think about it, I kind of don't blame him. I mean, I don't know the details of it, but I mean, if you're in this band that you looked up to, like who didn't look up to Metallica, who didn't love Metallica, right? And you are the guy of all these great musicians that audition, like you said, and a really great fit, a really great choice, because everybody knows Les Claypool and these various guys audition, not great musicians. It's almost like some stuff like that. You're like, well, thank God Les Claypool didn't play with Metallica, because look at all the great shit he's done. That's his. Same with best thing that ever happened to Metallica was, or Dave Mustaine was getting kicked out of Metallica, because now we have two great bands. And personally, I like Megadeth even better post Black Album.
Rest in Peace came out that time too.
Dude. It came out before the Black Album. Where Metallica sort of left off, and a lot of people would say the Black Album, or certainly afterwards, like in terms of the old Metallica, that's where fucking Dave Mustaine just took the reins. And I mean, even the stuff that he did, and I love Peace Sells. I love that album. First one's okay. I'm not personally a big fan of So Far So Good So What. Sonically, it's terrible, and I just think I think it's their weakest album. But yeah, Rust in Peace, the whole Friedman, Nick Menza era, everything they did then, and even like when Megadeth to me fell short or tried something different, I still think it was exponentially better than Metallica's flops. Like, I actually think Risk is a cool album. It's different. It's poppy. It's not Megadeth, Rust in Peace. But Mustaine, I always think, did a good job if you did that, and then he'd come back out and do something like 13, or what was that Heavy as Fuck album with Chris Broderick?
Is it United Abominations?
No, that's the one Megadeth album I'm not super familiar with. Fuck. What is... Keep going.
I can't. I know.
I got to look it up now. But yeah, I don't. And even like Super Collider was kind of poppy, and I finally checked that out and I dug it. There's really no Megadeth album that I'm appalled by. You know what I mean? Whereas Metallica, you're just like, oh, for God's sake, it's unlistenable. You know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I think Dave Mustaine kept that torch going, and I think Slayer too, to an extent. But that's because I don't think Slayer could sell out. It's impossible. With that style, there's no way.
Yeah, they're the AC/DC of metal. They're going to give you the same thing, and you're going to love it.
Exactly, and that's what we want from Slayer. And luckily, they stuck with that, and hats off to them.
Yeah, if Slayer did a Pink Floyd, Slayer could cover Dark Side of the Moon, it wouldn't matter. Their fans would boo and throw shit at him and want him killed.
Exactly.
Well,
as it should be.
Let's switch to Maiden, and Vic, I'll shut my mouth for 5 minutes and let you guys talk Maiden here while I Google Megadeth discography. What's your favorite Maiden albums, man?
That's a tough one. There's the first one I heard was Peace of Mind, so I think I might have to stick with that. But it's really tough because I love the first 2 albums too. Power Slave, of course, is amazing. Number of the Beast. It's almost impossible to pick a favorite. But since that's the first full Maiden album I heard, I saw them on TV before that. The videos they did, which, by the way, Maiden always has the worst fucking music videos. Probably because they don't care about music videos and MTV and all that. But they're just the dumbest videos.
They are.
I say this lovingly because they're one of my favorite bands in the world. And, every time I see them live, they still blow me away. They're just fantastic.
They are great live. And that's good for them. They don't really need the visual stuff in them. They've got the great sets and the great visual stuff, like iconic artwork, that kind of stuff, just like Megadeth, but they're so good live. Yeah. And just like with any great band, Metallica, all those guys, it's like they've been consistently great live for so many, 30, 40, goddamn. When did Iron Maiden start? Late 70s?
Yeah.
Yeah. Their first album is 1980, but I think officially they started in 76.
So is their first album Killers?
Iron Maiden?
Iron Maiden. Yeah.
Oh.
Then Killers.
Isn't there an album called Killers?
That's the second
Killers,
one.
and then Peace of Mind, right? When was Peace of Mind?
That's the fourth one.
That's the fourth one.
Okay, and then
not
after
counting
that,
any live albums or singles. That's
right.
Studio.
And so then after that, there was Somewhere in Time or Power Slave, and then Somewhere in Time. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. Even before I ever listened to Maiden, and I've said this over and over on the podcast, Vic knows all about this. I was in the unfortunate in the 80s when I started getting into metal, and it was like everyone was like, metal's satanic and kids kill themselves because of metal, and Tipper Gore was busy being a cunt and all that stuff. But like it back then, I was like, oh, Maiden, they said the 666, whatever. And but I think it's like, even as a kid, even if you're like, I don't know if I like this or what it is, but the artwork was so captivating, right? For nothing. Oh, the reason it stuck in your mind and you knew about that. Their artwork was just so fucking cool. Before I even ever listened to their music, I just remember seeing those album covers and being like, wow, that's badass, Oh, yeah.
The first metal t-shirt I had was an Iron Maiden shirt. The first back patch for my, vest I had was an Iron Maiden patch because they had Eddie. There is I would say any genre, there is no cooler mascot for any band than Eddie. And then live, when you see them live, when they have those huge Eddies and they have like all these different ones and they battle with Eddie, and it's, seriously, it doesn't get better than that.
Vic, did you go to that concert at the 360 track when they played and Megadeth opened? I don't know how many years ago that was.
It's been a while. It's when was it? 2013?
God, has it been that long?
Because Yuri, we were talking about it with Yuri, but yeah. So the 360 amphitheater at Coda, right? So, and they had
and did you see them?
The classic Seventh Son set. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son.
Well, that was what was so cool. They kept changing out their sets, right? Yeah. They had a lot of different, and then when they did Seventh Son, they had the whole big.
They got into. It's really cool because probably 2007. 2007, 2008, they did Somewhere Back on Tour. And so they played.
Yeah, I missed that one.
They played all the classic. Oh. They broke out the Power Slave set. They still had that set. And so they broke out like the Live After Death set list. And that's all they jammed to. And then the tour that we saw, I actually saw them in Seattle like a few months prior. And it's this, the Seventh Son set. So it's the newer, it's like post Power Slave. Right. So, yeah, but they broke out all the old sets. It was really cool. I wanted to see them. They came through again.
They played San Antonio, right?
2 years ago, like 2019, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him on that tour. I saw him in Vegas, and man,
yeah, I missed that one. I wanted to go to that one so bad.
They just never. I mean, the thing that amazes me, you go see Priest live. They're still amazing, but they tune down or play songs in different keys because Rob's getting older. That's normal. He can't hit those notes anymore. When Led Zeppelin did their reunion, they had to tune down because Robert Plant can't hit those notes anymore. With Maiden, I checked when I saw him live because I took some video and went home. It's like, I don't have perfect pitch. And I was A-B'd it with the songs. All those songs are still in the original key and he still hits those freaking notes.
And runs around like a badass. Dude.
And the last tour, he runs around like a badass and has flamethrowers. Not one, two, one in each hand. He's running around, belting his brains out and shooting flamethrowers.
I think that tour was his post-cancer tour, right? Because he had throat cancer. Yeah. It was announced or something, and then they did that tour afterwards, after he recovered. So, and then he flies the plane,
and he's still,
exactly, and flies the band around. Yeah,
I mean, is there anything this man can't do?
He just wrote a book, so I guess not.
Yeah, he directed a movie.
He was doing a book tour, so I don't know if it probably got postponed with COVID, but he was going around talking, and it's basically a book of him growing up and influences and things like that. But it's just him just providing commentary on the book. So hopefully that picks up again. I want to go check it out.
Yeah. And an Olympic fencer too. He was picked.
That's right.
He didn't go, I think, because they were doing the original Seventh Son tour, but I think it was 1988. He was picked for the British Olympic fencing team.
So ridiculous, man.
It's insane.
Amazing.
I mean,
I always think of those guys like Iron Maiden and Rush are always the two bands that come to mind when they play the Rock in Rio and stuff, and they just play for 1 million fucking people in South America. It's just insane, Well,
it's funny, we mentioned huge. Scotty and Charlie, Metallica, and I think I've seen just random videos where they're like, hey, what albums are you listening to? Or they find them in a record store. What are you picking up? And they're like, well, I found this, original print or whatever of Killers or, or they'll mention one of the Iron Maiden albums that they just listen to over and over again. So huge influence on a lot of these other bands too. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. I think I saw one, they do that here at the Amoeba record store that they have here in Hollywood, What's in Your Bag. And they had one with James Hetfield, and he had the first Iron Maiden record because he had worn his copy out or something or whatever. But
those first two albums had just a touch of punk to them, and they're so cool. And Paul Di'Anno just brings a different style to it. I really like those albums too. And then Bruce Dickinson comes in the third album, and it just doesn't stop. So
no, he just blows everybody away. Now I'm a huge Paul Di'Anno fan too, and I never really got into Bruce Dickinson singing the Paul Di'Anno songs. Not that he's not a good vocalist. Obviously, he's an amazing vocalist, but it sounds better with Paul. And of course, Paul could not have pulled off anything that Bruce did on Power Slave or Number of the Beast. So it's always a tough one. But I love both those things. I wasn't a huge Blaze Bayley fan, but I don't think anyone was. He was just
how many albums do they do with him?
2? Yeah,
2. Yeah. They're still good albums, but he was just not the right singer. I don't even dislike him as a singer because in that band he was in before, I forget what they were called. He was pretty good, but he just didn't. To me, it's all. I mean, being the singer for Maiden. I mean, come on, those are shoes too big to fill.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know what was the weirdest singer replacement still? It kind of makes sense because of the vocal stylings and the high rasp, but when Axl Rose took over for AC/DC, that was so odd. It was so funny how Axl Rose like disappeared for 1,000 years and then came out with Chinese Democracy and Guns N' Roses actually started touring. Actually, no, I guess that was after that because then the Slash and Duff, they had the reunion. They started doing that stuff and Axl started singing for AC/DC. He was like biggest rock star in the fucking world, for a couple of years there.
And for the longest time, I'm like, no, that's not right. He should not be singing for AC/DC. I don't want to listen to it. And then I listened to it, and I was
it's
like,
not bad.
It works.
Yeah,
it actually works.
It does make sense from
it's weird.
The vocal styling is kind of similar to Brian Johnson.
Is they're all back.
Yeah,
and they sound fantastic. Those new songs that
it's good. It's really good.
But the Axl Rose thing was just weird. But weirdly enough, to me it kind of worked. Like, he's pulling it off. It's probably the only shows he ever showed up for on time.
No, well, he probably the stuff is already there for him. He just shows up and sings. But I mean, singer replacements. The one I really liked was John Bush with Anthrax.
Mm-hmm.
He was awesome.
Was that only that one album though?
No,
3?
Did they do
no, he did 4 albums, I think.
God damn, really? I just remember Sound of White Noise.
It's the album with
Fuel. I kind of like Stop Falling
442.
Volume 8.
After that.
Volume 8, We've Come For You All.
Come For You All. Yeah, it's 4 albums.
I think that's 4. Yeah, I think there's a couple. See, I never cared for John Bush in Anthrax. I think he's a great singer, and I love Armored Saint.
Hell, he almost sang for Metallica. He auditioned. I think they even auditioned him for Metallica.
They asked him. He said no.
They asked him. That's right. Yeah.
Because Armored Saint was a little bit bigger when Metallica started. They were already like an established local LA band. So, and James, I guess, didn't want to sing, and I guess Dave didn't want to sing. So they asked him, and he said no because his band was taking off. Like one of those decisions that he probably still beats himself up about.
That must be the worst.
He probably will never admit to it, but he's like, fuck, I should have said yes to those Metallica guys.
Yeah, but who knows? Would it all panned out the same? True. Who knows?
Exactly.
Who knows? It's like with Dave Mustaine. What would have happened? Yeah, I don't know. I think some things are inevitable, right? It was just inevitable when you've got two guys that strong. Like they're gonna, which is weird though, because that's almost always the dynamic, right? I mean, it ended up being James and Lars, and maybe it was like those two, and there was just not enough room for the third, right? Because you've always got the Gilmore Waters and the Lennon McCartney, right? So many times you have that sort of nucleus duo. Elson and well, I don't know. I guess he's instrumental somewhat. He's written some stuff, so I guess he's pretty relevant. I mean, he's been there pretty much the entire time with Mustaine, minus whenever they had that weird little falling out and sued the shit out of each other and all that for a few years there.
Yeah, when Mustaine supposedly had like a pinched nerve and couldn't play for like a year or two.
That was so weird. Yeah, I remember that. And then they came out. I don't know if that was before or after The System Has Failed came out, and that's when Chris Poland came back and played lead on that album. Yeah,
with Vinny Cayuta on drums.
Oh wow, okay, yeah, what an interesting,
weirdest thing. But
it
then
is.
Again, Chris Poland and Gar Samuelson were fusion guys when they joined Megadeth, so I guess in that way it makes sense.
I actually think that's one thing that has made Megadeth so cool over the years is the fact that I don't know why that happened that way, or they were conscious choices that Mustaine made, or what the deal was with getting those kind of players, right? Because Friedman too is, even though the whole, what was it called, what was his thing called, Dragon's Kiss, and the stuff he did with Jason Becker was Cacophony, right? And that's metal and classical bass, but he also has Marty Friedman's one of those guys that he loves all this worldly Japanese music or whatever, Japanese pop. He loves 50s pop, like a lot of his stuff. And then his style was so different, and Chris Poland's style is so different and so recognizable. I think Dave Mustaine did great with those guys because they just have they brought such a unique element to it. Could have just been a very sterile normal, like sterile normal metal thing, right? Like Kerry King would not work in Megadeth, and someone trying to play melody would not work in Slayer. So it's just, but it really made, I think those guitar player choices and drummers too made Megadeth, gave them that interesting color. One of the Megadeth, I like all their albums, but like World Needs a Hero, once they came, I think that was after Risk, and it's like that album to me just felt a little sterile with the players, right? It kind of lost the magic of the Friedman Menza. I thought.
I think it's hard too for those guys because I mean, how many albums does Megadeth have? They put out 14, so 15. Many albums. You can't always hit the jackpot, you know. So I forgive them more than I forgive Metallica for their
but they've never totally missteps. Flopped. Yeah, they've never totally flopped.
You know, they, like you said earlier, they try some new things, but musicianship is always there. And the great thing about Dave Mustaine is he's always pissed off, and he's never not going to be pissed off.
Yeah.
So he's got, you know, till the day he dies, he will be able to write good pissed off Megadeth riffs.
Yeah, and I think he's one of those guys too. I think he is a great. I think he writes great melodies. You know, I mean, you never thought of Megadeth from maybe like the Rust in Peace kind of thing, but count all that stuff in the almost everything he's done, you know, and all that stuff in the 90s in particular, just melodic as fuck, dude. Just great hooks, great vocal lines, great melodies. Yeah. So, they're one of my absolute favorites.
Like 15 studio albums with a new one coming out this year.
Wow. See, Metallica can't say that.
No. I mean, Megadeth is like religiously every 2 years, there's a fucking album, man.
Yeah. They're workhorses, man, and more power to them.
Like Zakk Wylde, that dude is a beast. He's always fucking shitting out albums, man. Yep. Ozzy's another one, obviously, who's just got great sensibility with picking guitar players, and Randy and Jakey Lee and Zach. Yep. Gus G, temporary. I don't know who the hell plays guitar for Ozzy now. Do you know?
Well, technically, it's that guy that produced his last album, right? Because it was Chad Smith and Duff McKagan, and then that guy, I forget his name, the producer guy. I think he produced the album and played guitar.
I'm so ashamed and out of the loop that I didn't even know that. Like, he had Duff McKagan and Chad Smith on his album?
Huh. Yeah, on the last Ozzy solo album, which I do not recommend. It's not good.
It does seem like it's an interesting combo there.
Well, give it a listen.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
I'm not a fan. It's not. I mean,
it's a little more laid back. Ozzy's getting old. Like, he's got a lot of ballads.
I don't mind if he does ballads or not. It's just not. It doesn't sound like Ozzy. You know, to me, Ozzy, the band Ozzy had a certain style, which they kind of ditched after. What's the album after No More Tears? Osmosis, yeah. That's when they kind of ditched that style because the guy that was behind that style was no longer welcome to play in the band, right? Bob Daisley, the bass player. He's behind all of that. He is, you know, because Randy was on the first two albums, but he died. And then they had a different guitar player almost every album, different drummer almost every album. The only two consistent parts were Ozzy Osbourne, who doesn't write a lick of music. He doesn't play an instrument, doesn't even write lyrics. And Bob Daisley, who wrote all the lyrics for all the Ozzy albums up to and including.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I knew Geezer wrote all the Sabbath stuff, or a huge chunk of the Sabbath, and Ozzy's just the melody. Ozzy's the melody. He's like the Elton John, but he doesn't play piano.
Looks like Geezer's listed.
He comes up with melodies. Yeah, Geezer writes wrote all the lyrics for the Ozzy stuff. Ozzy will come up with a line, you know, and then probably do some lines, and and apparently he's great at coming up with vocal melodies. That's what he does, and then everybody else does everything. So the music was written by, you know, the first two albums, Randy Rhoads and Bob Daisley. Third album, Bob Daisley and Jakey Lee. Then Bob Daisley and Jakey Lee again, and Phil Soussan a little bit. And then No Rest for the Wicked, Zakk Wylde came in. The music was written by Bob Daisley and Zakk Wylde. No More Tears, Bob Daisley and Zakk Wylde. Osmosis, Bob Daisley and Steve Vai wrote an entire record
Wow, I knew Steve Vai wrote I think it's called, not Little Guitars, it's
Little
called
Man.
Little Man, which is a really cool song, and you can tell that's Vai all the way.
That's the only thing that's left, because Vai was supposed to play guitar on that album too. It was supposed to be Dean Castronova on drums, Steve Vai on guitar, Bob Daisley on bass. But Mrs. Steve Vai and Mrs. Ozzy didn't get along, so Steve Vai got
that's so
fired.
Weird. So,
and Bob Daisley had the audacity to ask to get paid, so he got fired too.
Oh, of course. Well, and then that's when they redid everything, right? Then they shit can him on all the recordings, which is so fucked up.
All the recordings were, I mean, Bob Daisley still has the demos, but those recordings were trashed, and they got
it's really a
Jack
shame.
Wild back in and wrote that album, and I still like that album. There's nothing wrong with that album. It's a great album. But
Which one?
I would have
Osmosis.
Osmosis. I would have liked to have heard Osmosis with Steve Vai.
I did not know. I'm Googling this right now. I knew he wrote that one song. I didn't realize he wrote a bunch of other shit on that
I'm looking
album.
like Geezer's on here. But Bob Daisley's not listed at all. Lemmy's on here. Yeah.
Bob
Bob
Daisley
they
was
did a lot of
completely cut
collaborations
from the record. And the songs that
up.
him and Steve wrote together were all ditched too.
Well, yeah,
so he
Geezer
has
Butler's on
no
there.
credit on that album. That's the first Ozzy album that Bob Daisley did not contribute to, even though he wrote a whole album, but that was trash.
Wow. Zach.
Remember that killer?
No, I was just going to mention Zach was on the studio album, but it was somebody else touring, right? Playing guitar. Joe Holmes.
Yep, Joe Holmes, Strat guy. Yeah, I actually that was that might have been the first time I saw Ozzy was Joe Holmes, and then
not John Holmes. I always get those two confused, but Joe I don't know if Mr. John Holmes plays.
That's not the Metal Church guy, right?
No, that's the classic porn guy.
he
Boogie Nights
served up the what they call it the flesh flute or some shit on. There's
skin flute.
Skin flute. There you go. Oh, remember that? I was going to say, remember they put, there's so many live, and actually a lot of them are really cool. There's the, when I think it was after No Rest for the Wicked. Yeah. Cause Miracle Man's on there, and a live version of Shot in the Dark, which is just fucking sick. Just Say Ozzy. It's like only 6 songs, killer live EP. And then they did a whole big double disc or something after No More Tears. Like every other fucking, after every album, they put out a live album or some compilation, greatest hits. Some of my favorite shit, though, like Randy Rhoads Tribute, that's one of my favorite albums. I think the playing on that album just slays. It's amazing. Yeah. And then they did that thing, I think it was a greatest hits album with one or two new tracks. Remember that song Back on Earth? It had a fucking awesome video, too, with like footage from Nosferatu, and was all creepy, old school kind of great song. I forgot
about that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, and after that was... I think the next record was Down to Earth, maybe, which had some good stuff, but it was a little more mellow. And then I kind of lost track.
I think.
Yeah, Trujillo. Well, I was going to say that earlier. So you had Mike Trujillo. Borden. Yep. Yeah, dude, and Mike Borden. I mean, I'm huge. I was saying huge Faith No More fan. So that's when I finally saw Ozzy, was the lineup that I saw.
Me too. That's the first time I ever saw Ozzy.
And I love that rhythm section.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah.
Zach Wild on guitar.
Yeah.
Trujillo on bass. Mike Borden on drums.
Amazing. Well, I
forgot Borden was with them.
I don't know if it was an actual official Ozfest or just an Ozzy show, but I saw Ozzy. So it was Sepultura opened, then Typo Negative was the first time I'd ever seen or heard of Typo Negative. And I was kind of like, it's a new band. You're kind of listening casually, whatever. And then they played Black No. 1, and I was just like, this is really fucking cool. And ended up super getting into Typo after that. And then Ozzy came on, and that was the lineup. Unless it was Joe Holmes at that point then. But I did see them like twice. Do you remember
the year?
I feel like it was 96.
That's about right.
The first time.
Might have been Joe Holmes. I saw him with that lineup with Zach Wild in like 2001. So Zach was already back.
All right. Again. So that's when I would have seen, I guess I saw, it feels like it was sooner than that, but I saw him a couple of times, and then I saw him way later with Zach Wild. And it was a pretty bad show. Ozzy's vocals were really thrashed. And you're kind of like, well, we all love you, and we understand. And he just couldn't sing to save his life.
Ozzy gets a pass.
Yeah, he gets a pass,
because even like if you listen to like live versions of like 70s Sabbath, half of the time he sings like shit too.
Yeah. There was something so raw and cool about that, though, that you can give a fuck. Like, even their first album was done in a day. It's insane. It's just crazy. Like, pretty
8
fucking
hours,
cool.
Right? On like a 8-track,
in
4-track.
Yeah, Crazy. Just boom, knocked out the music. I think Ozzy did 2 passes, doubled the vocals, and it was just like, there's a record. So when Joe Holmes was playing then in 96, who was the rhythm section then? Was that 96. So that was before? Yeah, probably, because I bet Borden was after Faith No More disbanded in 98, right? So
yeah. So with the Joe Holmes thing, that was
that still Randy Castillo, or had he already passed away?
I think it might have been Dean Castronovo,
maybe
on drums, and on bass Geezer.
Shit, maybe you're right. Shit, it might have been Geezer Butler.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know because Geezer plays on the record, but I don't know if he toured. I know with No Rest for the Wicked, he toured a little bit with Ozzy.
What about Mike Inez? Did he maybe do it? Because he played on No More Tears record, didn't he?
No.
He gets credit. Bob Daisley, right?
Oh, I could have sworn. See, I always thought he played on that fucking record.
Because he's in the video.
Oh.
So everybody thought that. And, the Ozzy camp, and I'm not saying anything against Ozzy, that's all Sharon. They hate Bob Daisley, but they kept asking him back, because he had that sound. He could, but they always tried to not have him live too much, not have him in videos too much, just kind of keep him on the down low. So Mike Inez, who's also an amazing bass player, but did not play a lick on No More Tears.
Yeah, he's got a writing credit for that song. I guess that's why he's in that video.
He came up with that. It's like, okay, You wrote 3 notes. Good for you, buddy. But like I said, Mike Inez, I think, is a fantastic bass player. And apparently he's a really nice guy, too.
He is a really nice guy. I actually met him, I think, 2 years ago. He's really, really cool. I'm looking at personnel. Ozzy Zach, Randy Castillo. John Sinclair, right? The unsung keyboard hero, right? Bob Daisley. And Mike Inez, it says bass inspiration and musical direction.
Yeah. I think it was just that riff he came up with, and then, Bob Daisley took it from there.
Wow. Man, what's the beef? Do you know the story with why they fucking hate Bob Daisley? What the hell's up with that?
Give me 1 second and I'll explain. I need like a prop to do that.
Cool. Oh, okay.
1 second. It might have been 3 seconds, but check this out. If this is a book, this is Bob Daisley's biography, I guess, for fact's sake. Now, Bob Daisley kept a journal from 1978, I think, or somewhere in the 70s when he joined Rainbow, all throughout the Ozzy days. He was never an alcoholic or a drug addict, so he remembers everything. And even in this book,
Ozzy remembers nothing.
Nothing. But so
watching Ozzy watch his old videos is so funny because he's just like, what the fuck?
So that book, he even has pictures of contracts in there and everything.
Oh, wow.
But so the beef started, it's all Sharon. Unfortunately, it's all Sharon. It's easy to blame the manager, but this is all Sharon. When the Blizzard of Oz became a band, right? This is a band, not Ozzy solo. When the Blizzard of Oz was put together by Randy Rhoads, Bob Daisley, and Ozzy, they needed management. So they went to their old Sabbath management, which was Don Arden.
Sharon's dad, right?
Sharon's dad.
Right.
Don Arden was like, I can't work with you because I got all these other things to do, but I'll have my son, I think his name is Peter or David. Anyway, my son will take care of you guys. But David was busy too. So he's like, okay, my daughter will take care of you guys, Sharon. And Sharon listened to the demos and took one look at the band and said, no, these guys, I don't want to have anything to do with it. They're not going to go anywhere. This is not going to make anything. I don't want to do it. Give it to David. So David Arden became the manager. They recorded their first album, released it, went on one tour, huge hit record, tour successful. Sharon goes to Daddy and says, Daddy, give me Ozzy. Literally. And of course, Sharon, being Sharon, she got what she wanted. So she started managing Ozzy. But for her, that wasn't enough. Ozzy at the time was married to another woman. And Sharon was like, well, if I get this guy like completely under my control, then I can milk him for all he's worth, because he was a mess back then, right? Early 80s, complete mess. So she being the master manipulator was like, I'm going to get my claws into him. And Ozzy even, it says so in the biography, told Bob Daisley, don't let Sharon get her claws into me. I don't want to have anything to do with that woman. And of course, Sharon breaks up the marriage, marries Ozzy, and the rest is history. And of course, Bob Daisley, being a good friend of Ozzy, keeps helping him out, even after he gets fired, because, you know, Bob Daisley and the drummer Lee Kerslake weren't, because they saw the whole thing happen right in front of their eyes, weren't exactly in the Sharon camp, so they got fired. But since Bob and Ozzy were such great friends, he kept coming back, but he kept not getting paid. You know, so he records bass, he writes songs and writes lyrics and never gets paid. So he decided to sue Sharon for royalties. And gets Daddy involved, Don Arden, who had a big falling out with his daughter for years.
So Bob Daisley got him on his side?
Bob Daisley gets Daddy on his side for the lawsuit.
Wow.
So this lawsuit is going to happen. You know, they're going to win it. It's, you know, Daddy is taking the stand, you know, the big guy, Don Arden. A week or so before the trial. Now, like I said, Sharon and her dad had a falling out for years. He had not even seen his own grandkids ever.
Wow.
Because it was so bad. A week or two before the trial, Sharon calls Daddy and it's like, Daddy, I want to, you know, patch things up and you want to see the grandkids, and you see where this is going, right? All of a sudden, Daddy doesn't want to take the stand against his daughter anymore. Lawsuit falls apart and nobody gets any money. Still after that, Bob works for Ozzy and still doesn't get paid to this day. And the same with Lee Kerslake, the drummer. He died last year or the year before that. And just to be nice, because he never even got like gold records for the records he played on, right? The Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. They never even got that. A couple months before the drummer died, Sharon sent him a gold record. Not even payment for services rendered, but just a gold record. It's like, you're going to croak soon. Here's a gold record. Now go away.
Wow.
Evil woman.
Wow.
Woman.
Well, look at her now. You know, she's all over mainstream TV, put Ozzy on MTV. I mean, but yeah, I mean, definitely.
She's going to milk him till he's dead.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it. We all know that. It's amazing he's still alive, honestly. But yeah, I mean, wow, that was really informative, man. A couple of things. I was thinking Tommy Aldridge had something to do in there. Maybe he toured with Ozzy. But he was not on the records. No. Same with Rudy Sarzo. Rudy Sarzo was the touring. Yes, I always think of those guys, and you're right. I mean, I knew they're on that tribute record, right? And that's one of the first Ozzy records I got too. That was the rhythm section. Oh yeah, and that record's just so goddamn good, man. It's so they're on fire. On Diary of a Madman, the studio album, if you look at the band pictures, it's Rudy Sarzo and Tommy Aldridge. So they just, and is that just because they were like, fuck these guys? So how did that, what the hell? I mean, well, they even went back, you heard about this, right? Well, they went back and recorded, and I was looking at that, and it was Mike Borden and Robert Trujillo re-recorded those albums. Yeah. And the fans didn't want that. They didn't buy that shit. Literally. I mean, they're like two of my favorite musicians, and I'm like, I don't want that. Yeah. But they re-released it with the original rhythm tracks, Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake, and still didn't pay them. Yeah, well, and that's what I was saying. They've got so many albums and remasters and re-releases and this and that, probably just about more than any band I can think of. I mean, every time that's an extra buck for, the Osborne camp, right? So,
Well, for
I
Sharon.
mean, Sharon is she is a savage businesswoman. There's no question about it.
Sharon and her dogs.
Genius in that. I mean, but Don Arden was an old school East End London gangster.
Have you ever heard in that? Well, you're right. Same thing with like Zeppelin. Back in the day, those guys would kick in your door and beat the shit out of you and be like, "You're going to book my fucking band." Like same with Zeppelin, right? Their manager, like strong arm people, Grant. just a great manager to have on. But then he croaked, and that was pretty brutal for him, right? I think he was. Who else did he manage? Bad Company or something as well.
Yeah, probably because Bad Company was on the Led Zeppelin
Atlantic
label.
Yeah. Or they were on the Swan Song.
When they did Swan Song, they were the second band to be signed to Swan Song. The first
so I bet he was
being the Detectives that nobody ever heard of, including myself, didn't make it very big. I did get to jam with their drummer once.
Who?
Which was
the drummer of
the
who?
Detectives.
Really?
Yeah, that was the first band to be signed to Swan Song label. They never went anywhere. And then the second band was Bad Company, who went the distance.
Did you ever jam with Sarzo? Because I remember he came to MI and did some stuff many years back. No.
I have a little bit of an issue with the one time. I don't know if we're talking about the same time, but he came to MI once and played Mr. Crowley with Steiger, and and of course I sat out because that's Rudy Sarzo. That's the bass player who played with Ozzy. I'm like, I'm going to sit in the audience and enjoy this. However, I was very annoyed. Maybe that's just the music teacher in me. But so Mr. Crowley is in the key of D minor. The key of D minor has an F natural note in there. He kept playing, and not just playing it here and there, but like riding an F sharp, like relentlessly. Like, dude, you played this song 5 trillion times with Randy Rhoads and Ozzy, and you don't know how to play this song, and you don't hear that this note is bad. It's in D minor. F sharp will make it a D major.
I am like shocked to hear that. That doesn't make any sense. Unless the only reason I could possibly fathom that was if for some reason he was just like a prankster dick that was like, oh, I'm going to do this in my thing. Fuck these people. Serious I don't understand what the fuck you would do that
Sharon
for.
got to him.
How can you not? Sharon was like, play this fucking wrong. And then we're going to blame Bob Daisley for it.
We'll give you a paycheck.
So it's really weird.
That is bizarre.
Obviously, when he was in Ozzy's band, he played it right. So maybe he just didn't do his homework or whatever. It was kind of strange that such an iconic song with an iconic bass part, that you get that key note. That's literally the difference between major and minor. Did you get that one wrong?
I don't even know why you're writing that fucking note anyway. Then the song is just dun. What is it? Dun 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 dun. Bam, B flat, da 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 dun dun. You write D. Like, why are you playing either one of those? Why isn't he playing the fucking root note of D? Where's he droning on that?
There's a couple of times. Let me see if I remember it. It's been a while for me too. So I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I used to live and die by those songs, man. Back in the day, like now
I'm
like,
I know the main riff, but there's one riff where the F is kind of prominent, and he just kept riding that second fret on that E string. I'm like, what are you doing? And obviously, I didn't want to say anything afterwards because who the fuck am I?
Maybe
he's Rudy Sarzo.
Maybe he's one of those guys that's gone deaf, like Paul Gilbert or something. He just can't fucking hear what's going on, Maybe that's it.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, how could you possibly be at that level and play on those albums and tour with Ozzy Osbourne and not have ears? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to assume that Rudy Sarzo's got some hearing loss and he didn't put his hearing aid in that day and just also didn't do his homework. And yikes.
Who knows? So that's my Rudy Sarzo story. He's obviously a great bass player and played with some amazing bands. So you can't.
I mean, the metal LP was that a metal LPW thing, right? And so who sang that? Did Sean McPherson sing?
At that time, has to be Sean.
Wow, I'd like to hear that. That's interesting. Sean doing Ozzy. Who was drums?
Well, he did it in his. That might have been.
No, he did huh?
It might have been
maybe it was Welby then. Yeah. Okay. Because there was there was a dude for a while I guess I don't remember what year that was. I was long gone. I just remember hearing about it. I think. Fuck, I can't remember anymore. Anyway, speaking of MI, Musicians Institute, dude, we've had a couple of MI alumni on here. We had Mark Thomas, who's in Nashville now, and
yeah.
Lenny J.
Mark.
Yeah.
Lenny, yeah.
So great catching up with those guys. Now, with those guys, like I knew Lenny, I had sat in with them and had like a lesson or something once, I think is how I maybe initially met him. But my brother ended up playing with his band back in the day and went to, I just remember they went to Switzerland and stuff like that. And then I had actually met Mark before I went out there, and then he hooked up with Sean and Dan Hostile Groove, and they were roommates, and that kind of led to when I guess they needed a bass player, to my brother getting involved with that way back then. So do you know my brother from back then? Probably.
Oh, of course, Eric.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know if we ever really talked or hung out much, man. Right?
I don't think probably
in passing.
Yeah. But Eric, yeah, I mean, I used to be over at the Hostile apartment.
Yeah.
Fairly, on the Sycamore Terrace.
Yep. Mm-hmm. That little teeny fucking elevator, and you're trying to go down with all that gear.
Oh man, yeah, that was rough.
Are you in Hollywood, or what part of LA are you in these days?
I'm in Hollywood, but I'm in East Hollywood now, so the other side of the freeway.
East Hollywood, so past Vine and the subway station over there. Is that okay?
Yeah. I'm almost in Silver Lake. It's
Silver Lake,
kind of on the cusp of Los Feliz, and technically the neighborhood I live in is Little Armenia.
Okay, is that anywhere near like Thai Town or anything like that, or not?
Basically the same thing.
I see. Okay, cool.
So a lot of good Thai food over here.
Yeah, dude, I've been over there to eat a lot back in the day. So, MI, you went there around 2000?
1997 to 1998.
Okay, and then you've been teaching there for a long, 17 years or something?
I taught there for 18 years.
Taught, so no longer?
Unfortunately, no longer.
Okay. Did the pandemic have anything to do with that, or were you just kind of ready to move on?
Indirectly.
Yeah.
Indirectly.
Yeah, because I was talking to Lenny about it, and he's been going back and forth between Vegas and working in Vegas now. So a lot of good things to say about Vegas. I've heard a lot of good things about Vegas popping lately, but and then he's still, I guess, doing the online stuff. So obviously, MI had started doing that, I'm sure, before the pandemic, but that's a thing now.
Well, the pandemic happened, and then, of course, I had a lot less hours because a lot of the stuff I did at MI was all those LPWs and all that, and that was basically done. A lot of classes didn't happen anymore. The bass department was technically canceled. There is no longer a true bass department. It's
really
like one department now, vocals, keyboards, bass, and whatever else is just one department. They fired the department head, Maurice. I don't know if you remember Maurice.
That does sound familiar.
They fired him as department head, but he stayed on as a teacher, and as a consolation prize, they gave him all my hours. So for the last, I worked at MI till the end of last year, and the last 2 quarters, I basically had no hours. So it was just done.
Well, that sucks, man. It sounds like it's I remember going there, and shit, you were there before me. I feel like the 80s and 90s was the shit, right?
Yeah.
And then they expanded, and they added all these new programs that became much more commercial. I mean, such is going to be anything, right? That's successful. It's going to grow and expand. Yeah. But it used to be simple GIT, BIT, VIT, KIT, DIT, I guess is what they're, PIT maybe. And then in the RIT, right? And then they got into all these different facets. And I looked at the website the other day. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, it's a lot of bull. But the idea of putting all the instruments together is gross. I don't like that. What the fuck?
Well, it's because those departments are so small. The student bodies are so small. You know,
is that because everyone wants to be a DJ and a Pro Tools expert now, or what?
That, and of course, you know, just the age of internet, especially with bass. I mean, who needs to go to school and pay thousands of dollars to learn how to play bass? I mean, seriously,
No,
80
I mean, you're right.
to 90% of bass is just going doom, 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 doom. You watch a couple of YouTube videos and you can join a band.
All right, you did make a really good fucking point, because nowadays, and we had a engineer, Mark Urselli, on the show a little while back, and he was talking about, like, yeah, there's no excuse nowadays. You can get on YouTube and learn any kind of, if you for audio. Back in the day, you had to go to school, you had to intern somewhere to learn the craft and to learn these things, and that was shit. It's so crazy to think back 20 years ago. Is like, yeah, there was no fucking YouTube. There was no. There was like an internet, but it was kind of a new thing, and that information was directly relayed from other people. And back then, we all had like subscriptions to guitar magazines, or we bought guitar magazines, and that's how you learn. That shit's like, I'm not saying it's totally of the past, but everything's online. It's just not what it used to be, right? No. So that's a really good point, and it's true. It's a very different world, and you're able to learn online, and
especially for bass,
self-educate.
Yeah. Especially for bass. I mean, I see it all the time. People take a couple lessons maybe, and then they know a couple. They can do this with this hand, and this with that hand, and you're a bass player.
Well, that's the big thing. Well, here's the thing, right? And I mean, as someone who's taught for years and years, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's a two-way street, and it's great when you have a great teacher. So much of that, as part of it, is just being inspired by somebody, right? And then someone who can convey knowledge and really knows how to work with you and where to take. I think that's important on the teacher's part. But if the student doesn't want to practice or it doesn't matter. Like, at the end of the day, it's like you can learn stuff and be given information, and until you go fucking woodshed and practice that information and then actually apply it, whether that's recording or on stage, one way or another, it's pretty much just useless, right? So that's the big thing. You're right. It's not so much about like, I've taken 2 years worth of lessons. Well, you could take 5 fucking lessons and practice your ass off and be a badass.
Yeah. It's all about, I tell all my students that, it's like, if I give them an exercise, if you don't practice this for like 10 minutes every day, 5 days a week, you could take 2 days off. If you really gung-ho, you do 6 days a week. But if you don't do that and you just, before the next lesson, quickly shed it for an hour, it's pointless. You might as well not do it. Consistent practice. And you can find a lot of those things on YouTube or other websites too. But what you can't find, and I think that's where MI or other music schools or sitting down with a teacher, is that inspiration and that, motivation.
Guidance. Yeah. Inspiration, exactly. I do think that is relevant and valuable. So I think when you get to a higher level, right, or you start broadening your horizons, and maybe like if you're going to start, dipping your toe in the jazz pond or something, it's like, then I think it's really valuable to have those interactions, and you don't need them consistently necessary. It's like you take a lesson, you get a lot of new information. You're already speaking the language, so you can kind of take it a lot and then take that home and sort of, work with it for a while. And I think it's great to have mentors, and so many guys that I know that are, it's amazing how, like, with world-class players. I mean, Randy Rhoads was a great example, right? That they're always hungry for more knowledge, and they're taking different lessons from different guys, and that's
Cliff
the mark
Burton
of
too.
Who's that?
Up till Cliff Burton as well. Up to the last tour that he did, that he unfortunately passed away on. When he was home, when he was not on tour, he took piano lessons every week with the same teacher.
Dude. Like, can you imagine? Like, that's got to be like what heaven is for musicians. Like, heaven's got to be something different for everybody, right? But if you're like a musician, a bass player, a guitar, like, that's the whole thing, right? You go up there and all of a sudden there's like all the things that they never got to be. Like, all of a sudden it's like Cliff Burton and Randy Rhoads are composing, piano concertos together and shit like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, both of those guys, I think both of those guys would have been doing film scores, Oh, that's where they would have gone.
Yeah, they were both, you could tell that they were expanding, that their knowledge and talent was expanding, that it was about to or just had exploded and then cut off.
Well, I think Randy was already kind of like, yeah, this has just been fun, but I don't think he would have stuck around with Ozzy too long. From what I gathered, he was kind of like
Rudy Sarzo, because I think I read Rudy Sarzo's biography too about that last tour. I think he told Rudy that he was not happy and he wanted to go home and, what you said, pursue that side.
Yeah.
For Cliff,
composition.
That's a tougher one, because Cliff was such an important factor in Metallica. Maybe not songwriter but he was looked up to. So I think, people always ask me with friends, I talk about, what do you think Metallica would have done a Justice for All? And would they have done the Black Album? I think that's an impossible question to answer because
it is, but I think it's a little bit of a misnomer when I think some of these metal guys, which by the way, we all love Cliff and for good reason. He's amazing and all that. But the funny thing to me though is like he inspires everybody, right? So you're gonna have all these great bass players that are inspired, but you also it's almost like there's these default guys of like it's almost like it's almost like red flag. If a guy's like I love Cliff Burton or a drummer's like I love Dana Carey, you're like I don't know if I can trust you because it's like a default thing. I had bad experiences where I jammed with someone who was like, yeah, Cliff Burton. And then I jammed with these guys and it was like, wow, this guy blows. He doesn't know anything. Like, I mean, it's one thing to be inspired by someone, but you need to learn to tune your instrument and stuff too, But yeah, blah, blah, blah. That's nothing to do with Cliff Burton. It's just an observation. But I think, the guys, agree. Yeah, the metal guys that are like, oh, it's good, Metallica sold out and it never would have happened with Cliff. I think it would have been the opposite. They just would have done it really well. They would have segued into, I think, maybe even more like in that sort of a Pink Floyd realm or something, right? And then just had these amazing compositions and thematic albums and stuff like that, Orion on steroids, right?
I think you're very, very right. I think so too. Because I mean, Cliff wasn't the biggest metalhead either. I mean, he listened to Leonard Skinner. Mm-hmm. According to Kirk Hammett, when they were not playing gigs like in the hotel rooms, he would grab Kirk's guitar and like play Skinner songs.
So that's how Kirk Hammett got all of his licks. Kirk Hammett's just they'll play all those stock Skinner licks, all those little pull-offs.
They already always shared rooms, right? I mean, when they were on tour and they weren't like huge yet, they had to share hotel rooms. So it was always James and Lars and Kirk and Cliff, the San Francisco boys and the LA boys. So yeah, they just and what would have happened? I think what you just, that picture you just painted, I think that's the most realistic answer. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and they still put out great stuff, but I mean, yeah, Cliff, that would have, who knows? You can only speculate, right? Anyway, so what are you doing now? I mean, are you teaching privately or, I mean, were you gigging a lot as well? I know, dude, I looked you up and you played, I had forgotten about, so there's this band Caurterized, right? Mm-hmm. Is that, am I right? Is that the right name?
That was my baby.
That's not a thing now, but you played with Caurterized. That was your band.
That was my band. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like
I mean, not just my band, right? But that was my baby, my brainchild.
Yeah. I feel like I've actually got that album somewhere. And then,
we did a couple of albums.
What? So maybe I've got your debut one. What? So, okay. So what happened with that band? Tell us the story on that.
Well, that band, like I said, I kind of came up with it. And at that time, this was 2003. I had a Swedish friend, Martin, drummer, and we were talking and like, oh, we should start a death metal band. So, okay, we need a guitar player. And he knew this Japanese kid called Kosuke, and he was interested. So the three of us basically were the core of that band. Mm-hmm. And then Chris Velez, you remember Chris Velez? Maybe
singer.
They nicknamed him Slayer in those days.
I don't know if they
called him Slayer. Anyway, he joined later. So the four of us were like the biggest drive behind the Caurterized. Unfortunately, because it is MI, all these international students are on, or often are on visas that run out. So first, Martin, the drummer, had to leave and go back to Sweden. Then years later, Kosuke, the guitar player, had to leave. And at that point, I decided to call it a day because he wrote about 70 to 75% of all the songs. And I felt like without his input, it wouldn't be the Caurterized anymore. So I kind of cut the cord there. Sadly, because I really liked that band, and I think we did some cool music, but I did not. He was such an important factor in that band. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So I had to.
What did you? Where did you guys record it? Did you record it at MI?
Our first demo was recorded at MI with Greg Harrison on guitar. Still, remember him? Shredzilla.
Oh yeah, I do remember that guy. Yeah.
Amazing guitar player.
Yeah.
But he left and did his own thing. And after that, we went to another studio that I forgot the name of. And after that, we found a studio called Trench Studios. It's in Corona here in California. It's an hour and a half away or something, with an engineer called John Haddad. And that guy really got it. So we kept going back to him, not just with that band, other bands I played in too. And if people ever ask me, do you know a good affordable studio that can do a decent, or not decent, but good, solid recording, I always refer them to Trench Studios, John Haddad. Abysmal Dawn recorded there, Intronaut, Hyrax, a lot of local LA bands, and bigger names too, recorded there. Excellent facility. Really cool dude too. He's a drummer, and I think the most important reason why bands still go to studios instead of doing everything at home is because you can't beat a good acoustic live drum sound. And John is a drummer, so he knows how to make drums.
Right. Okay. Cool. Very cool. Corona. That's where is that direction wise?
East.
It's
towards Riverside. It's like southeast, more east than south.
Inland Empire.
It's quite a drive.
Yeah.
What's
that? Inland Empire.
That's it.
Or I've heard other people refer to it as the land of the dirt people. But they got Alberto's Tacos out there, and that place kicks ass.
Oh, I've never heard of it.
You had me at tacos.
Alberto's, man. Hell yeah.
Well, you guys, if we can talk food for a second, you guys are both in Texas, right? So you must have.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Spoiled, I know Austin has freaking awesome food. Are you in Austin too, Vic?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Texas got it down. You got the Mexican, you got the Tex-Mex, you got the barbecue.
There's some good eating around here. I'll say something funny. When I first went out to LA, it was, I don't know why, I had an expectation that there would be good Mexican. Not to say that there's no good Mexican food in LA, but
there is.
It's definitely, it's
different.
To be fair, it's different because you have Tex-Mex, like you said it, Tex-Mex. Yeah. Tex-Mex is different than street tacos or authentic Mexican cuisine, but that's what a Texan or a lot of probably Americans think Mexican food is. I mean, we think Tex-Mex, right? And so I went out there, and there was what was that place called? Was it called Acapulco or something? Does that sound familiar? Is there?
Yeah, but that's kind of like a Mexican Applebee's,
Right. Well, so I went there, and whatever, it's okay. But this was hilarious because I had gone there with my buddy. I think when I moved out there, maybe he came and visited, and I had lived with him in San Antonio for a while, and he worked at a Mexican restaurant there, and I mean it was Tex-Mex, but we went to this place, and it was just so funny because we ordered, and then we're like, can we get some queso? And the guy was just like, what? We're like, you don't have queso? It's like a bowl with cheese in it. And so they tried. They literally put a bunch of shredded cheese in a bowl and put it in the microwave and brought it to the table. And we were just like, all right, I guess. No. And we're just going in the cheese. It's just awful. But yeah, nice try. Anyway.
Terrible.
I don't feel like I ever really had any great Mexican food place there. I went to a couple. There's some kind of little hoity-toity place in Sherman Oaks called. It's kind of famous. I can't remember what the fuck it's called. Casa Vega or some shit. It's not great. There's nothing that I remember being amazing.
There's some good. I mean, the best tacos I've ever had though were in Tijuana, hands down.
Is that why you went to Tijuana? Or? They do things with those tacos in Tijuana,
I've been to Tijuana 3 times, and that time was actually the one good time. So don't spoil that one time that was actually good.
Let me tell you something. Look, this has actually been, I enjoy all of our podcasts and all of our guests, and some of them, I don't know, some of them get more lucky than others, and we actually talk about music. This has been fascinating and informative, and up to this point, I have not ruined it. But now that you said Tijuana.
Yeah.
You've been to Tijuana 3 times. What's up with that, sir? Are you a Donkey Show fan or what?
No, I've never seen a Donkey Show. Never. Nor do I really have the urge to go see one.
Man,
that's not really my thing.
I wish we'd have brought up the Donkey Show on Italo's podcast. Vic, that motherfucker.
He gives
a bad name to Mexicans.
Yeah.
Oh, no, there's no probably. He gives a bad name to Mexicans. He basically is like, oh yeah, that's a Mexican thing you got to do. It's like, really? Do all Mexicans have to go like watch ping pong balls fly out of women? Like, or don't? Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to informative music stuff. You've never seen the Donkey Show, have you, Vic?
No.
Okay.
But I have been to Tijuana a few times.
Oh yeah, well you were stationed in San Diego.
The closest I ever came to a Donkey Show was what was that? Clerks 2?
Oh yeah, yep, that's right. I remember that.
That's the closest I've ever been to a Donkey Show.
Yeah, leave it to fucking Kevin Smith to put that on film.
Oh man, did you ever go down the coast to like Rosarito or Ensenada?
No, I'd love to. I mean, the last time I was in Mexico, well, kind of in Mexico, is right before the pandemic hit. So February of 2020, I did this Monsters of Rock cruise with a band, and we were in Cozumel for like just a couple hours. And of course, you only see the touristy stuff. I was bummed because I wanted to go see the ruins, the what is it? Aztec ruins. Yeah. That is the kind of stuff I would love to see, not a freaking donkey show. I want to climb those pyramids. Fuck the donkeys. Well, I mean, other people do that.
I think it's interesting. We were talking about Amsterdam before we started recording. We were talking about the Van Gogh Museum, Vermeers. Skunk jumps on and he goes, first thing he thinks about when he mentions Amsterdam.
Prostitutes.
Yeah.
No, hey, look, for the record, I do not. Is it condone? What does that mean? I don't advocate for condone prostitution. Is that
I thought you were going to say donkey shows.
Dude. Or donkey shows, actually. I'm actually just had a... Oh. Okay, when you said
if the donkey's into it, I'm cool, but I mean, I don't think they ever asked the donkey's opinion, so that's why I'm not down with it.
Well, that's why I'm. Oh God, what has happened to our conversation? Look, I don't want to get hung up on hung. I don't want to get hung. That's the thing with like this is the guy had a hard time even saying this word. It's so disgusting. Like bestiality is just fucked up because like it's like it seems not fair to the animal. And that's a dumb animal, right? So it's probably just getting off and having a grand old time, but. This just seems wrong. I don't like bestiality. I'm going to go on record and say that on this podcast.
Until we can ask the animal's opinion.
Exactly.
It's not cool.
We're so concerned about each other's feelings and, like, well, what about the animals? Anyway.
Exactly. And animals are always better people than we are. So
yes, hey, what's your cat's name, by the way?
Yeah, she can misbehave.
She sounds a little
her
needy.
name is... Well, she's old. She's almost 20.
Wow. Oh, my God.
And
wow.
She's a cranky old lady. Her name is Miss Crinkles.
Oh, wow. That just sounds like a good old lady name.
Yeah.
It's real close to Wrinkles.
But she can be very loud when she wants attention. And obviously, I'm not talking to her now. I'm talking to you guys. So, but, she's taking a nap right now. So hopefully... she'll be okay.
Back to my brother.
And donkey shows.
So my brother,
how's he doing?
He's doing great, man. What's that, Vic?
Your brother and donkey shows?
Donkey show. Yeah. So my brother, my brother finally stopped watching donkey shows and ended up getting married. And he lives in San Francisco now. They've been in San Francisco since I think 2015. He's got a son.
They've got other kind of shows.
So yeah, they're doing good.
Too.
Other kind of, I'm sure San Francisco, well, kink.com, they got some filthy shit going on over that place. Just anyway, so where was I going? Oh, but so the woman he married, Tina, has this cat named Mr. Peanut. We ended up writing a funk theme song for the cat, and I released it in this whole big thing. But this cat is the coolest goddamn cat ever. It's like a dog. It's just the most friendly. It doesn't do any of that cat, I'm too good for you, fuck you until you have tuna kind of attitude, right? It's just like the super friendly
like
animal that loves everybody. But the thing about Mr. Peanut is that your cat, when you said needy, like, dude, Mr. Peanut has got to have 24/7 attention, or he's just like, because he's so like spoiled, and he'll just come up to you, and he's so adorable, you don't mind it, but he'll just come up to me and, like a dog, like you just want, you're like, Jesus Christ, dude. Yeah, awesome cat though. Mr. Peanut rules, and he's getting up there too, man. I think he just had his sweet 16 a year. Well, he might be 17 now even. But okay, so. Yeah. What are you doing now? What are some other bands? Or when you say, actually, back to that cruise, that the Monsters of Rock, that's a pretty big deal, right? It's like there is some heavy bands on that thing. It was
very interesting.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Well, it was more like the 80s metal.
That's what I mean. Yeah, but like big names. Yeah.
The coolest thing was, Steve Harris was on the cruise with his other band, British Lion.
Wow. Cool.
So I got to see Steve Harris from 5 feet away on a tiny little stage, which with Iron Maiden, there's no way you can pull that off. Even if you're right at the barrier, he's still 10, 20 feet away. But this was small club, basically small club on a boat, but small club. And so I got to watch that, which was really cool. I got to watch a couple other cool things. I don't know if we've ever done any of those musical cruises. It was my first time. It's different.
How long was it?
It's a 5-day cruise.
Okay.
And they literally have 40 bands playing multiple times. So every day there is, from 10, 11 in the morning to 1 to 2 at night, there's bands playing, multiple bands at the same time throughout the ship. They have 4 or 5 venues, and then outside by the pool, there's bands playing, which is cool. But after a couple days, you're like, shut the fuck up. I can't.
No more falsetto.
No
more guitar solos.
And as cool and weird as it is, 2 cabins away from me was Tesla singer Jeff Keith warming up. And I was like, man, this was after a couple days. I think he didn't have to play till. And after a couple days, I was like, dude, shut the fuck up. And I actually like Tesla, and I think his voice is great. But so it's cool, but it's overkill.
Yeah,
there's so many bands in such little time, and it's crazy. Did you guys ever go to the Rainbow when you were out here?
Yeah,
Rainbow Bar and Grill.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's basically like the Rainbow on a Saturday night, if you remember that. But it's 6,000 people.
Wow,
they're all drunk all the time, and
do they have cocaine? Probably.
Well, none of that is allowed, but of course,
right.
So it's a party. It's literally a 5-day long, 24/7 party. Wow. They have casinos on the boat. It's a regular cruise.
It sounds awesome. I mean, I've heard about those. I've seen those advertised a lot, and it sounds like a super fun thing to do, especially if you're someone that's into all those bands and you just go fucking party your ass off. As a working musician, I'm sure it's a bit can be a bit taxing, but also fun.
It's unique, and I'm glad I did it. If they would ask me with any band I was in again, I would say, hell yeah, I'm on. Mm-hmm. Would I ever pay for it myself? Hell no. Never.
Why? I love just because it was too much, you think? It was just overload after a few days?
It's too much. Yeah. It's too much. And if you don't want to get shit-faced, the whole day, every day, which I don't. I like to have a couple drinks, but not like being shit-faced 24/7. The only thing to do on that ship is eat. So I ate 5 meals a day because all the food is free.
Fucking sign me up, dude. How the fuck did you get that gig? I want that goddamn gig.
The food is good. They have, the buffet section, which is already excellent.
Yes.
But they also have their 5-star restaurant with their menus and their chefs. And that's open all the time, and that's free too.
Holy shit. Wow. So, I mean, obviously that cost a pretty penny there's a price tag for the average person going, but the bands, it's all comp. That's amazing, dude. How did that come about? The only thing
you have to pay for is alcohol.
Yeah. So if you're not a raging alcoholic, then that's not bad.
You're allowed 5 bottles of wine per passenger. Take on board. So what we did is right before they leave from Florida, right before we boarded, we Ubered it to the nearest Trader Joe and just got like 5 boxes of wine. Brought that on board.
So then this took off from California and then you sailed all.
No.
You flew to Florida.
No.
I'm lost on how.
You fly to Florida to Fort Lauderdale, and then you go.
Yeah, because when you said Cozumel, that I was like, going, wait, Cozumel's not on that side of Mexico. Okay, now
No, it's the Gulf.
A little more. Yeah. Okay.
So they have various different stops, but this one goes from Fort Lauderdale to Belize, and then to Cozumel, and then back.
So how did that come about? But that gig.
Well, they asked the band I played with. Unfortunately, this is one of the only band that I'm not even a full member of. I don't even know, but I'm not allowed to say what band it is. I wasn't allowed to say it on the ship either.
Oh, wow.
It's one of those Ghost things. You know that band Ghost?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Secret identities and everything.
Interesting.
And I hate that shit. And, when I was on the ship and I had a couple drinks, I started telling some people. And then the next day I got a big talking to. So you're not allowed to say that you're in the band. I wear a huge costume. You can't see it.
Oh, wow. So, well, hell, it sparked my fucking curiosity.
It sucks too, because guess what? When we played our gig, Steve Harris watched our entire show, and I can't tell him that it was fucking me.
Oh, man.
Steve Harris is raving about, this is the greatest band ever, and you just have to be like, yeah, that band's really cool, huh?
Steve Harris, I don't know, but Nuno Bettencourt, the guy from Extreme, he was raving about the band and wanted to take the band on tour.
Wow, no shit.
But I can't say, hey, that was me.
Wow.
What?
That's what.
This was last year?
Yeah,
2020.
Vic is smart because he just looks up the bill of that Monsters of Rock cruise in February 2020 and looks at the one band that he doesn't. That's how you can do it.
Okay, it's
that's
not
how
Tesla.
You find out.
All right, well, Vic's going to do his research.
The only
and
band on that
this
cruise that has costumes that you can't tell who it is. Everybody else is just standing there.
Holy shit, you play in Guar. Holy shit. That's crazy.
It's not Guar, no. But I can imagine it's just as uncomfortable as playing in Guar. I never thought of it until I did this gig, that how fucking uncomfortable it has to be for those guys to do that. And
are you talking about just the costume and having to wear...
And play in it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because for me, I have to wear a costume that not only... is it huge and heavy, I also cannot see any part of the bass. So I'm playing completely blind.
Oh my
I can't
God.
see the body. I can't see the neck. So when I rehearse with this band, I play like this.
Wow.
Luckily there are tunes that I've been playing since I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
So they're tunes that I kind of know like the back of my hand.
Wow.
But it's not easy to play completely without sight. I also cannot see the audience. I have no idea what's going on. I can't see the band. Everything is on
Jesus.
Nothing. And I can barely move. Oh.
Let's talk about gear for a sec, man. What do you play? Do you have a certain brand of bass that you prefer or play a lot, and the amps and stuff? What do you use?
A lot of different stuff. Like I said, for that classical stuff, I use that 1 5-string that I keep. That's just an Ibanez sound gear.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have And I don't know if when you were at MI, did they start the luthier school yet?
Mm-mm.
The GCA, Guitar Craft Academy. Okay, so they had that for a while. That's done now too. And one of the teachers there, his name is Lance Alonso, good friend of mine. And he built me.
Dude, is that the guy that built Mark Thomas a guitar?
Yep. He built Mark a couple of guitars. He built Greg Harrison a couple of guitars. Awesome. A lot of good players. And he built me a couple basses. So I play a lot of those. He's one talented guy. He makes really good instruments. So I play that. I have, for a lot of gigs, that want traditional, I have my Fender Jazz, because you can't really go wrong with a good Fender Jazz bass. That's pretty much what I use most of the time. This band, I play in this band too, Behold the Monolith. We're actually next month going to go in the studio and record an album with those guys. I'm pretty excited about that too. I play a 5-string too, but a regular 5-string with a low B. And that's an LTD ESP bass that ESP actually gave me. I'm not endorsed by them, but I did some work for them. So instead of payment, they're like, we can't pay you, but we can give you a bass. I'm like, yeah, can I pick which one? So I picked a bass. So I was down with that. Amps, Mark bass, because it's easy, because they're so small and easy to carry around. On the other hand, I still prefer an 810 Ampeg cabinet, which usually has me end up at the chiropractor after a tour.
Yeah, I haven't used it a lot, but that Mark gear sounds really good, man.
Mark bass is really cool.
Yeah,
they're very small amps. You can literally put them in your backpack, and they pack a punch.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they're all solid state. There's no tubes involved, but they sound good. I love them. I bring them to every gig, whether it's a metal gig or not a metal gig, and nobody's ever complained.
So this Behold the Monolith band, I just looked them up, and it looks like they've been around for a while and got a few records out. How long you been playing with them?
I think a year and a half, 2 years maybe.
Are they? I didn't look. Where are they from?
Well, they're an LA band, but it's a 3-piece now. They were a 3-piece at the beginning, and they changed lineup a couple times. The guitar player is originally from Baton Rouge, I think, and the drummer from Massachusetts, but they started the band in LA, so it's an LA band.
Right. What kind of style is that?
It's a cool mix of, like, it's heavy, kind of on the doom side, but it's got a little bit of progressive, some stoner in there. It's cool music.
Cool, man. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah.
I like that name a lot too.
Yeah, it's a cool band. I've known the guys forever, especially the guitar player, Matt. We've played in a Venom tribute band together, and so we've known each other and played in bands together for years. After the Caurterized was disbanded, I started another like death grindcore band that he played in for a while. So, I mean, I've known Matt forever, and when their bass player decided he didn't want to be in the band anymore, he asked me, and I was like, I'll help out, and that kind of turned into me playing bass for them. And then they got rid of their singer, and they're like, oh, well, you played and sang in the Caurterized too, right? Can you?
Oh, fuck. So you're straight up fronting it now, huh?
Yeah.
Cool.
That was thrust. I've always been a reluctant singer. I mean, I do it, and I can, but I'm not the one like, oh, can I be the singer? But if it's necessary, like in the Caurterized too, I was the lead singer from the beginning. And then I was like, I don't really want to sing. I like playing, I like concentrating on my instrument and just playing and being free. Singing kind of takes away from that.
Mm-hmm.
But then with the Caurterized, we had a couple singers, and like none of them do what I have in my head. And it's, I write a lot of the lyrics and that. And so I fired all the singers. I'm like, okay, I'll do it myself. And I guess with Behold a Monolith, it's kind of that same thing where the singer they had was really good. A girl singer, actually. She was an excellent singer, but it just didn't work out from whatever level. I'm not quite sure. So I can growl a little bit. So
she was like a growly chick.
She could do both. Actually, I recommended her to the band when they lost their singer before that.
Oh, okay.
So I was sad to see her go. I understand why it happened, and I don't think there's a lot of hard feelings or anything. But I'm like, man, I can't sing like she does, but I can sing like I do. And apparently that's good enough. So
that's how I feel about my vocals. And then I'm like,
yeah, you know,
and more and more
for mediocrity,
dude. I mean, well, I finally it took years, and I mean, and I've been singing a long time, and I'd sing and play acoustic, and had my ass handed to me when I would, have melodies and stuff in my head when I first started Good Rogering, and then we went in the studio and all these things that kind of humdy-dummed in the apartment on my 4-track tape recorder, then go in the studio and I'm like, wow, I suck and can't sing any of this. This is embarrassing. And had to rewrite melodies and like tuck my old shit way in the background and have guest singer. And then over the years, I've gotten I listen to old demos and stuff now. I mean, stuff that I'm, finally getting around to recording 10 years later, or not that long, but where I'm listening to the demo and going, whew, I mean, not that I put a lot of effort into, a scratch take or something, but I think I've definitely, God, I would hope a better singer now. That's just, and a lot of that I think is finding your own voice and your own comfort zone. And we're learning to work within that, and whatever the style may be, because I do a lot of different styles. Obviously you do too. And it's like, you kind of have to know where you're at and like what, that you can do for that, right? And so for me, it's like I'm not a fucking tenor. I mean, I can kind of do the high screams, but I can't sing like beautiful, clean Freddie Mercury melodies. Right? I got the James Hetfield rasp, or I can do the Johnny Cash or something. But like, that's don't take me too far out of those zones, probably.
I think that's probably the most important thing you said is you got to find your voice. And that's what I have to do for every band too. And we've been working, we actually demoed out the entire record that we're about to record next month with all the vocals, everything in place. And that I think is really good because it helped me find my voice for that band. For the Caurterized, I had a voice, but obviously this isn't straight death metal. So I can't use that voice, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm actually, for the first time since 1994, I'm doing some clean singing and some harmonies.
Awesome.
Nothing, crazy. Not like you said, no Freddie Mercury's or Bruce Dickinson's, because I know my limits, but it sounds decent enough where I was like, okay, yeah, we can do that. So.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Good pre-production, you get everything ready, and then you're going out to the trench, I'm assuming, to record. Is this going to be the first, is this an EP or a full length? And is this the first album?
This is going to be a full length.
And this is the first recording you've done with them?
Yeah, this is going to be the first album and full length album. We got, I think, 45 to 50 minutes worth of music. We're not doing trench this time. We're going... where our rehearsal spot is, literally like 3 blocks away, is another good friend of mine. Maybe you remember his name too, Charlie Waymeyer, drummer.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
He has a studio, Ultimate Rhythm Studios, with his friend Ernesto Homeyer, who was also an MI teacher, guitar player. And we're going there because it's 3 blocks away. Yeah. Charlie's excellent at what he does as well, and it's just convenient. Awesome. 3 blocks. Yeah. Seriously.
Dude, I tell you what, that is nice. I always feel like I'm driving. I mean, I'm a whiny bitch because I live in Austin. So when you drive 30 minutes here, you're like, LA, that's like only 30 minutes?
Yeah, right.
Yes. Holy shit. This is a hop and a skip.
I know.
But it's like, I feel like there's never it's like 5 billion studios here and none of them are, more than 30 minutes away. But, people don't open up their studio in the middle. Well, some do. I mean, shit, there are some studios kind of downtown. There's a lot of great studios here, actually. I just hate driving, especially now the pandemic's happened. I just don't want to do anything that requires leaving my house anymore.
Yeah, same here. I mean,
I like the cruise idea. Can I just go somewhere where I just eat free fucking food and then play music and then go eat more food?
I'd go in a heartbeat. Like I said, if I don't have to pay for it, I'll take it, because I love being on boats and water and all that.
I've never been on a cruise, man. I'd love to. I just realized. Yeah, so basically, next time if we see Ghost playing a cruise, we know it's you.
No, it's not. I wish. I'm actually a fan of that band, and it's no.
If you were in Ghost. Yeah, if you were in Ghost, you wouldn't be doing this podcast. They'd probably pay you to be like, you can't talk to anybody. We can't risk you saying anything. Yeah, it's pretty interesting about Ghost. I got to tell a funny story about this, and I'm not going to name names, but there was somebody that was like, his girlfriend had like, I think it was probably after they had broken up or something, but his girlfriend was like this huge Ghost fan, right? And like would go to all their shows and get the VIP pass or whatever, where you can go like, hang backstage and meet Papa, whatever the fuck his name is, and whatever he always has these different characters, right? And you get to do this whole big thing, and then somehow got to be maybe know something or whatever. Anyway, blah blah. Long story short, and I don't even know if it's true. It's just funny, but went to somewhere to see the band and ends up like hooking up with somebody or fucking the guitar player or whatever, right? And I was just like laughing my ass off when I got this story. I was like, it probably wasn't even the guitar player. It's like some fucking roadie that's like, oh yeah, that's me. I'm the guitar player. It's like banging random chicks because nobody knows who the fuck it is.
That's what they told me to say,
That's so
on the
awesome.
cruise. No, just say that you're the bass tech or like the roadie.
I'm just going to start telling motherfuckers I'm in Ghost.
It was probably the guy that puts hilarious. Up their costumes, like cleans the masks and everything. And he's
he just had shit hanging up and like, yeah, exactly.
Lysol.
Got back from the fucking dry cleaners. He's like, oh yeah, that's my costume. I'm the guitar player. She's like, oh my God.
Right.
And then she watches
did not
him
work
again.
For me on the
and she's
cruise,
like,
though. Any of those ploys did not work for me. Not that I was really trying. But
it's like
what you should have done was have Steve Harris sign your bass. Oh well, you couldn't see him. You couldn't see anything. So.
I didn't know he was there. They told me afterwards he'd already left. I'm like, fuck me.
Handing your bass to random people. Are you Steve Harris?
Was it a silver Fender P bass?
Oh, you looking at cruise photos, Vic?
See, he already knows.
We can share post.
We won't blow your cover, culprit. Man. Nice.
It's a jazz bass. But yes,
okay,
that's the one. And if you've seen that picture, you probably saw the costume. It fucking sucks. It really does. I mean, it's fun. It's a fun thing to do, and I'm not complaining that much, but holy shit balls. And the thing is
hot?
This is how it works. You have to wear some kind of backpack with like a metal pole sticking over your head, curved, and that the dome goes on top of that, right? And you got to really, tighten that and screw that backpack down, because what happened the first night we played, that I didn't tighten the screws enough, so that dome, that's pretty heavy in itself and carries all the weight of the entire costume. In the middle of the set went, so I had to play the whole thing, not just blind, but like this.
This is such a horrible thing to say.
There's no time, you can't take the thing off during the show. There's no time to adjust. So here I am, blind, playing an entire set like that.
Wow. You basically know what it feels like to be Mick Mars. Poor guy.
Oh my God! Don't even mention Motley Crue, man. That just makes me sad.
What do you mean by that?
Well, a more recent story, which I, in hindsight, thought hilarious. I'm a single man, and I hate Motley Crue. I can't stand them. Right? Those two are perfectly normal things. Maybe not everybody hates. If you don't hate Motley Crue, that's cool. I'm still be friends. But so for the first time since this whole quarantine lockdown, I actually went on a date. About a week ago.
You're in LA. You know all these chicks are gonna love Motley Crue, dude.
See, I wasn't thinking. Everything was awesome, swimmingly. And then I say, I hate Motley Crue.
Oh.
There was never a second date.
Oh, no.
I'm like, seriously? You're serious? You're not
man, people take
go
music
out with me
fucking
again?
seriously,
because
dude.
I don't like Motley Crue. Who cares? I mean, you like Motley Crue, and I'll still go out on a second date with you.
I'm like, I don't care what you like. You've got genitalia. No, I mean, not really. But
Exactly.
Look, in the long game, those things matter. In the long game, those things do matter. You can't be with like a metal dude with some chick who loves bro country. That shit's not gonna last, right? You both have to have like shit tasted music, but
one band.
But dude, like on one date, I don't give a fuck. You could tell me that like Mike Patton is the worst singer ever and Faith No More blows, and I'd be like, I don't care, take your pants off. Like, whatever. Right? You know what? Like, who cares? But and then after that, and after I disappoint you sexually, I'd be like, haha, joke's on you. I love Faith No More. Fucking get out of here.
See, and everything else, you know, all the other music, we were like completely like in line, and everything was nice, and it was great.
Look,
you know,
Motley Crue's not Metallica or Megadeth, but why do you hate Motley Crue? Like, what's so terrible? I mean, Vince Neil can't sing. We all know that, but why hate them so much?
I think they embody, to me, more than any other of those bands of that era, that spirit of that whole Yahoo image and looks.
The glam rock thing.
Glam rock, and who cares if you can play your instrument as long as you have the right eyeliner or guyliner in this particular
and then people were calling them metal
case.
Too, right? And that was really annoying.
Yeah,
I don't think metal's appropriate term.
People call a lot of bands metal that I don't agree with, and for example, Tool, is that really a metal band? I like Tool. There's nothing wrong with them. But are they really a metal band? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, some people called Rage Against the Machine a metal band. Now, I think Rage Against the Machine is fantastic, but I don't think they're a metal band. I don't think they would call themselves a metal band.
Yeah.
They're a rock band but yeah, Motley Crue to me embodies that which I dislike about LA.
It sounds
more than any other band. And Vince Neil is a shit singer and a shit person, and
he's done some pretty shit things.
Can't play bass. He didn't even play bass on his own solo record. Now, you're a bass player. You release your own solo record, and you have someone else play bass on it.
What? On 6 a.m., Nikki Sixx doesn't play bass on that?
No.
He plays bass on Alice Cooper on, I think he plays bass on some stuff on Hey Stupid, which is a fucking killer record, dude. Oh, he plays Feed My Frankenstein, and that's an awesome groove and an awesome song. I'll give props on that.
Probably not him, though.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It could be the thing. I've heard this about Kiss, where they had like, what was the dude that played on the David Letterman Late Show? I was just talking about him on the last podcast, and I couldn't think of his name. Something
Willie?
Fig. Huh? The drummer.
Oh, Anton Fig?
Anton Fig.
Anton Fig.
Like, I heard that he went in and drummed on Kiss albums and shit like that.
Okay. Can I ruin your world now?
I don't care. I don't. Look. Oh, first of all, do you like Kiss? Because if you don't like Motley Crue, but you like Kiss, that doesn't add up to me. Kiss inspired Motley Crue. If you want to shit on somebody, you should shit on Kiss.
I'm not a huge Kiss fan. I like some of their songs, but I'm not a huge fan. But at least on some of the early Kiss songs, Gene Simmons played bass himself.
Well, this is news to me that Nikki Sixx is a total hack. I mean, I never thought he was the greatest bass player in the world, but I didn't realize that.
Well,
apparently
one
he's
of my
terrible.
Teachers when I started MI, a guy named Paul Farnan was also Nikki Sixx's private teacher, and he told me the guy can't play.
Wow,
absolutely not. And this is me going to ruin your world because you said Guns N' Roses was one of your favorite bands. And I may assume that Appetite for Destruction is one of your favorite albums.
Yeah, well, yeah. That's why I started playing guitar.
It's a great album. Personally, I have nothing against the album. It's good. But that's not Duff McKagan.
Uh-oh, I'm getting upset. This is weird. What's going on here, man? It's like when someone first told me Typo Negative wasn't didn't have real drums post Bloody Kisses. Like, get the fuck out of here. And then I'm like, oh wow, you're totally right.
A lot of bands. I recently found out that that Swedish death metal band Entombed is all V drums on their.
Oh well, I you know what? When it comes to like that style of music, that totally. You listen to a lot of stuff and you're like, there's no way that's a human being, right? Like really precision stuff. Like I don't know, Morbid Angel or fucking Devin Townsend stuff or something. Sometimes it sounds so. It doesn't sound like a drummer, you know.
Yeah, sometimes. Well, I mean, sometimes it's because it's too doctored. You know, I had that with one band where we went in the studio and the drummer, I saw him record all the tracks, and then they quantize everything, and
it's almost like why
a drum
bother?
Machine.
Well, especially if you're doing V drums. Like, why even have a drummer play? Just program the fucking thing. It doesn't make exactly. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I can say that I played drums. I did a punk song with my fiance, and I played my electronic kit, and it was horrible. And then I just moved everything around and made it sound like it was good. That's not really me playing. You know, like, why did I even take the time? I'm like, well, that was a waste of time. I'll just program the fucking drums. Be way faster than me cleaning up my own shit. You know.
Exactly.
Anyway, Duff McKagan, I don't believe you. But actually, no, you seem like you really know your shit, man. Well, so tell me the story on this.
The guy who did record it told me himself, and he is a big studio cat.
Is he not a psycho LA liar? Ask him.
No, he's actually at this moment as the bass chair of Berklee College of Music. Steve Bailey. Bass player called Steve Bailey.
Okay.
He was a big studio cat. I don't know if he still does a lot of sessions. He plays with Victor Wooten all the time. And, you know, he taught at MI when I was a student. That was his last year. I think he did lessons at MI. And we had a lesson. And I don't know how it came up. Maybe I started playing a lick from, you know, that Sweet Child of Mine, and he just kind of laughed. I'm like, well, was that bad? I'm like, no. You know that was me. Do you? I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, I was called in for that session because Duff couldn't pull it off. And if you look at, you know, footage from that time, he doesn't really, I mean, he wrote all the lines. That's all his, but he couldn't really pull it off. You know, it sounds super sloppy. And on the record, it's on the money, and that's pre-Pro Tools or any kind of digital. That was Steve Bailey.
That's a good point. I'm still having a hard time with this, but I don't know. I'll take your word for it. No, it's okay. You're not.
I wasn't there, obviously.
I'm not a teenager. Like, nothing. I don't care. You know, I mean, what do I don't care. But
from what I've heard, the rumors I've heard is that it might be so that the only Guns N' Roses members on that record are Steven Adler and Axl Rose. But that's rumors.
Oh God, that's gotta be a rumor, dude. That guitar style, that's gotta be Slash. That's so signature. No one else sounds like that. I mean, really.
It's possible. But, you know, those studio cats like the Carl Verheijens and the Lukethers, they get paid to sound like others. You know, I mean, I talked to TJ Helmrich, who was a recording engineer teacher there too, and he was there for a lot of those sessions. He was there for like the band Warrant, you know, and he's like, yeah, the only guy.
Oh yeah, Janie Lane's the only guy on those records, right? I've heard about the Warrant stuff. You totally heard that.
And so many records,
dude.
Kiss too. You know, Bruce Kulick did an MI thing. He's like, yeah, I played bass on some Kiss records because Gene just can't be bothered.
Too busy selling shit. Yeah. Coming up with marketing stuff and banging chicks.
And the one that surprised me the most, and I don't know, it's kind of ambiguous, but this one time, Greg Bissonette, the drummer, you know, David Lee Roth, he played with everybody. He did a clinic at MI. And for some reason, for me, it came out of the blue because I never heard that rumor before. A student stood up and asked him, did you record drums for the Black Album? And Greg Bissonette said, I cannot answer that question. What the fuck does that mean?
Man, these are tough pills to swallow. I'm not going to say that. Here's the thing. In a pre-Pro, you make a good point, though. In a pre-Pro Tools world where you're sitting there chopping tape, no one's going to want to chop up someone's pile of shit if you can get someone that can just go in there and nail that and get it done right. So it doesn't surprise me in a pre-Pro Tools digital world when you're dealing with tape and time really is money and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And you're dealing at a high level where that stuff albums. It has to sound awesome. It has to be great. And
those musicians were all fucked up. Lars
and a lot of those guys
in
were
bad
really,
shape.
Really fucked up.
Guns N' Roses, duh.
Well, Guns N' Roses to me makes more sense than. I mean, honestly, Lars isn't that far of a. It's not that hard to. That doesn't. On a way, it doesn't sound super far fetched because Lars is always on top of the beat live. You know, he's not a really metronomic drummer at all. I'm guessing they're one of the biggest bands in the world that doesn't play to a metronome at all. I mean, they are all over the fucking place live, you know?
Yep. Surprisingly, to my ultimate surprise, I read an interview with, what's the guy that did their first couple of albums? Or the Master of Puppets and Right? The Danish
Fleming,
guy? Fleming Rasmussen.
Yes.
In an interview, he said that the only song he ever recorded with a click with Metallica was For Whom the Bell Tolls. And if I listen to it, man, that shit is all over the place. So he swears that they used a click for that song. But that's like the last song I would think. If I listen to it, that's janky as shit. Great song, don't get me wrong.
I honestly, that would be the one song I would. Maybe he got it wrong. I don't know if I can buy that because that stuff is a lot of that, especially Master. I'd Ride the Lightning maybe, but Master Puppets is such a tight record. That just has to be to a click, dude. Has to be.
Right. Or you never know.
Well, who knows? I mean, maybe they came in with scratch tracks that were played to a click and they just played it though. Like
I was
Cliff
surprised
Burton, or James brought in scratch.
Nick
Definitely not
Menza
Lars.
told me that Rust in Peace wasn't recorded to a click.
I can't believe you're giving me all kinds of information that's blowing my head.
That's what he said. I mean, obviously the guy was on drugs too, but he said that.
I mean, to their credit, they're tight. They're tight as fuck.
That's one of the tightest metal albums ever.
The sad thing about Rust in Peace, which is like arguably like the greatest sort of like speed metal album ever, right? Is that it was kind of like that was being done at the same time. I think was it Mike Klink was doing Rust. No, he was doing Jesus, we were just Guns N' Roses, the Use Your Illusion stuff. So I think that Rust in Peace was kind of like, all right, I guess I can mix this real fast or whatever. I don't think it got the production that it deserved. And actually, I remember being like really upset when Dave was saying they did all those remixed stuff and re-released all these remixes. Some of the old, some of them I think I like the old stuff better. But man, Rust in Peace, you can actually like hear a pop on the snare drum and hear, just sonically. It doesn't even matter. It's such a great record, but the drums and stuff, it's not like, obviously you take Rust in Peace from a sonic standpoint, compare it to Use Your Illusion. I mean, it's night and day because Use Your Illusion sounds fucking incredible sonically, you know?
Oh yeah. That's,
but I mean, that was like
so many millions of dollars,
$1 billion versus, $1 million basically. So man, I mean, the no click stuff sounds, because that actually sounds contrary to when you bring in session players and you get everything perfect in the studio. So it sounds like bizarre that you would not do that in a studio as making a professional record. Yeah. The studio guys, I mean, you're right, because if you got these guys who write and they're the rock stars in the face of the band, that's great. You can get away with murder live, but in the studio, it's got to be great. So I think I've heard those LA stories, and I think there's probably more than any of us know or would care to know, right? You don't want the romance just ruined. You don't want to accept it. So it's almost like you don't care. But I mean, shit, we're just sitting there talking about Ozzy. I mean, guys you don't even know that are on fucking records, not getting credit. Other people coming in and recording shit. It's like, what the hell, man?
Oh, yeah.
It's a mess.
But at the end of the day, if you have a great record, it's a great record. You know, who cares who played drums on the Black Album? If you like the Black Album, it's not going to make it any worse. You know,
well, yeah, if anything, it made it better.
will remain a great record. So will Rust in Peace.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my favorite bands of all time is Thin Lizzy, and one of my favorite records by them is one of their live records, Live and Dangerous. Now,
live.
Freely admit that that it's 25% live, 75% not live, but it's still a great record.
Look, I'll be the first to say I've done live stuff that's so not live by the time you're done with, because you're just like, well, all right, I need to punch this note, punch that note, chop this, chop that, redo vocals here. This all sounds like complete shit. I will say that I mean, I have done some stuff that's really authentic, which is pretty cool. Like, even if it is rough and raw, I think there's a character about that actually makes it really cool. But sometimes if you're going to put out a record, you can't just have like completely horrible notes, and you got to make it at least like tolerable. But I think there's a fine line between that and then like beating something to death where it's like clearly it's too perfect, right? But that's contingent on style and genre and level of fame and all this kind of shit.
Some styles, even in metal, they need that. Nowadays that super technical metal, it needs to be perfect. Otherwise, it's just a mess. It just sounds like shit. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of that style anyway, but I mean, if you want to do it, it's got to be perfect.
Yep.
Drums quantized, everything to a click, every note in the right place. Yep. Otherwise, it's not going to work. But if you listen to Motorhead, you don't want any of that.
Right.
It's got to be loose.
Yeah,
dirty.
It's weird because I try to make it's kind of hard because you can easily go down a rabbit hole and become obsessed with perfection. But I try to make conscious choices with certain recordings. Is like, okay, this is like, for instance, with this band doing some Van Halen covers, right? And so on one of the tunes that we did, I did vocals and stuff, and I was like, all right, I don't want to like beat this to death and try to be perfect because that's not how Van Halen was in 1979 or whatever the hell, right? That doesn't make sense to me. But if I was doing a collaboration, something of like modern prog metal, well, now I really need to look at a grid and be like, no, it's not acceptable that I'm a 64th note ahead, not for this, right? It's true. And I sit there, I don't know how you are, but I sit there obsessing in Pro Tools these days with not only do I do it with my voice on this podcast, Vic, and my stupid plugins trying to make myself sound more manly, but like I'm sitting there going, oh, this is a 64th beat ahead. This sucks. Not vocal, not this, but like music
some
stuff.
Of it needs to be perfect. Like all that classical stuff. I did, that a whole album worth of classical stuff on that bass. And, especially if it's like multiple layers, so it's like 4 basses.
Yeah.
If it's loose, it sounds terrible. Because that's like, especially Bach, that's basically mathematics.
Yep.
Musical math. It has to be in the right spot. So you got to do take after take, and sometimes maybe moves a couple things a little bit, but it's got to be on point. That's why I love that stuff, the Bach stuff, because he did all that before Pro Tools and clicks and whatever.
Everyone I've met,
those guys,
whether you're a metal guy or a jazz guy, everybody's like, Bach is the man. Bach did it all. Bach was like the Beatles of composers. He just did everything.
He was like the Beatles. If the Beatles married Einstein and had a baby.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Beatles and Einstein, like some great mathematicians.
Weird looking baby, probably. Like it kind of looked like Ringo Starr, but with the Einstein thing, and then the John Lennon would be a very ugly baby, but the baby would be the ultimate genius.
Yeah. I mean, is that a direct reference that Bach is ugly? I'm not sure I'm following your analogy here.
Oh, no. I'm more of the Beatles, Ringo and Einstein. Well, Einstein wasn't in the Beatles, I think, but he was not the best looking guy either. But, Bach, no, he just looked like your regular
guy that lived
German,
in that era, right?
Yeah. Renaissance, what is it? No, Baroque guy.
Baroque, what's the word?
I don't think he was particularly good looking.
Kind of dumpy looking. But
yeah, it was just kind of a puffy German guy.
Yeah, puffy. There's a good word for it. Not to be not poof, but puff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was definitely not a poof. I think he had like 400 kids. Everybody back then, everybody back then like smelled like ass, but they fucked like rabbits, man. Like everyone had like 10
Well, what
children.
else are you going to do when the lights go out? There's no cell phones.
Seriously,
no
like
internet,
play piano, play music, like every instrument. All those guys played every instrument. They just play and compose all day long and then fuck all night. Fucking ballers back then, man.
Yeah.
And they're all math geniuses, dude. There's some genius people in this world, Bach being one of them. Another guy that no one knows anything about is Garfield, the president that was assassinated. That's all anyone knows about him. I went off on this on a podcast. I saw this I saw a presentation on Garfield. It was one of the most if you're into like historical stuff, read a book on Garfield. It's one of the most fascinating things you'll ever read. He was an absolute genius, architect, mathematics genius, politician, general. I mean, it was insane. And then just a horrific tragedy, the way he died, that we don't ever learn about it in school, right? Like no one ever knows. You just go, oh, Garfield, he was the president and he got shot. That's it, right?
Yeah.
Read up on Garfield. It's
cat.
Fascinating. There's also the cat.
There's also the cat.
There's also Garfield.
Probably what most people would think.
Garfield? Oh, the lasagna. Yeah, the lasagna
we know
eating
more
cat.
about.
He hates Monday.
Especially this nowadays generation.
Oh, who doesn't?
Nowadays, yeah.
It's a cat. Loves lasagna. The president that loved lasagna. Yeah, anyway. Yeah, dude, I can't even fathom that level of fucking genius. Well, then you got Beethoven, who was deaf and still composing, phenomenal music. It's interesting.
Yeah, those guys. But that's probably, I think about that sometimes. They probably, not that everybody would be genius if we turned the lights off, but we got too many distractions,
You're so
man.
true. It's so true. Yeah.
Phones and internet and TV and everything. Those guys had nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, they played
That's why.
music. Then if you have food, you eat a little bit, then you blow out the candle and you fuck your wife a couple times if she's not already pregnant. And that's it.
No, it's like your wife's already pregnant, so you go fuck one of your mistresses or your slave.
Well, if
go to a donkey show.
Well, if you're lucky, if you're rich enough to be able to own slaves,
right,
or afford a mistress. But yeah,
I agree. I think it, like, back in those times, it makes sense to me. Like, we all know Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, and all that, and then there's a ton of other composers that are still known, maybe not at that level, but there's got to be millions of people that have just gone by the wayside, because that's what people did back then. There was no there were no movies. You were either a writer or a musician or an artist, right? There was no all these mediums that exist now. There was no influencers and models and I don't even know what the fuck, TV stars and reality stars and movie stars. None of that shit existed, right? So I think, and back then, that's why the writing is so fucking brilliant. From, you go back a couple of centuries, you have these brilliant writers and poets and thinkers and musicians and artists. And you're right, there was nothing else to do but hone those crafts. And I think I think that back then music was a language that was probably nowadays, like, everyone's speaking English over in Europe, right? Back then, the second language of so many people, at least the aristocrats, or even probably, maybe unless you were just dirt poor, was music. Everyone probably had a fucking instrument, a piano around the house, and that's what people did. That was a social gathering. Everybody could play. Everybody, like the shitty musicians back then were probably like us now. You know what I mean? Like, the shitty ones were good musicians, and then the other ones
probably
were like,
even the dirt poor ones had, like, between, like, the three families that lived in their one bedroom apartment had like one violin or a guitar or something.
Yeah, I bet they were all badass.
Like those gypsy jazz guys, they grow up in it, and that's why all those guys are so freakishly talented. It's insane.
It's so like weird.
You said,
they didn't. There was no plumbing, no running water. You just shit in a fucking pan and threw it out the window or whatever. Like, I remember reading about Beethoven one time, and he'd get all mad and like throw his fucking, what do you call it, a bedpan or your little shit pot across the room. And I guess his chambermaid had to clean up his shit when he was having an off composing day. It's like, geez, it's so bizarre. It's like we've evolved to such a more civilized, level, but I think in a lot of ways we've devolved, because we lost a lot of things. I mean, we got a lot of cool toys, we got like cell phones. That's cool. You can look up things on Instagram, but it's all a distraction. These guys just sat behind their desks and literally wrote. I mean, that's the thing that blows my mind. Like, a guy like Mozart had a piece of paper and like a pen in front of him, and he wrote music for an orchestra without touching an instrument. Yes.
Now, I can do that with a bass line, but I still usually grab a bass and like, does that really sound good? He wrote it, gave it to his musicians, and he knew it was good. What the fuck? It's mine. But the way I always explain this if I'm talking about it, because it is logical. I mean, you still have to, I think, be a very, there is still, it's like the perfect storm of the logic that I'm about to describe and also being a genius, right? Which is, that's why it's only a handful. But the logic of it being like,
yeah, if you've done music the way that we learn a language and you speak it and write it and talk it and think it every single day, all day long, your entire life, that's like Mozart wrote music just the way we're talking and having a conversation. Or if we start writing, but even better, really, because there was no, it's like if I'm writing something, I'll write a draft and I'll go back and oops, I misspelled this, I misspelled that. And it sounds like with Mozart, it was just like perfect, right?
That's insane. I mean, as far as we know, obviously.
But what's great, I mean, right? You think about Mozart would take like, it'll take me like 15 years to like release an EP, right? Mozart would be on a stagecoach ride and be like, cool, I just wrote a sonata today, It's crazy.
It's insane.
And then now I'm going to go booze it up. And it's still like a rock star back in the day, man. Fucking
oh yeah, totally
hammered and shit.
Dude, partying.
That I love. I mean, I know it's a movie for entertainment, so it's not going to be 100% historically accurate. I think it was written based off of a play or something. But Amadeus. I mean, that's such a great fucking movie, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really great.
Yeah, I think he lived in a time where the parties were particularly good too. Those late 1700s.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in the right circles, if you were like hanging out with the rich people, then you had some parties.
Do you really think that women were that hot back then, though? Because his chick in that movie is pretty happening. I'm wondering if that was an actual thing. Because
they probably were, just with worse teeth and more smelly.
Yeah, really. How it made a reference to like Mary Todd Lincoln. I'm like, dude, like,
and hair in all the wrong places.
Yeah, if we were going to get really historical, it'd probably be something we don't want to look at.
You probably wouldn't mind because you wouldn't know any better.
No, you wouldn't know any better.
A dude, and you would probably be even more smelly, and your teeth would be even worse.
Right. Just so cavemen. It's like fucking cavemen that are writing this brilliant music, man.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
It's, sometimes I like to take a peek, into those times, but on the other times, we romanticize it because we see it on TV and you can't smell. But
it's so
walking
true.
through the streets of Paris or Vienna or wherever in those days must have been god awful. I mean, Los Angeles on a hot day smells.
That's right. No, for real. Like, I mean, that on a hot day in those meccas would just smell literally like ass.
System and running water. But those, like you said, when you were done shitting, you just threw that shit out the window. Literally, you threw that shit out the window.
Yeah.
And that's where it sat.
Some poor peasant just lands on his fucking head while he's cleaning off.
Exactly.
He goes and writes a sonata about it. The shit sonata.
Yeah. But can you imagine, a city like, a big city probably had like 100,000 to 200,000 people. That's a huge pile of shit that doesn't go anywhere.
So true,
and
man.
In the summer, that heats up. Plus all the food, because no refrigerators.
Right.
So there's the tons of rotting food and all the body odor of the people, and then the poor people that literally never washed and couldn't afford perfume. Those smells, man. I don't think we could stand it. Even if we were zapped.
Oh, dude! Like seriously, nobody ever talks about that. Nobody ever talks about that. It's like, oh, where could you time travel to? Oh, I'd go to the 1700s so I could meet Mozart, and you would never. You don't think about smell, and you would show up and be like, God, Jesus Christ! Like, get me the fuck out of here! Like,
and if you wouldn't puke instantly, you'd probably die of food poisoning. That same day.
Oh, we're such pussies now. I mean, obviously Texas just had this huge crisis with the winter storm and all these people lost power.
How are you guys doing? I mean, you guys have power.
Yeah,
what about
we
the water?
fared pretty well, man. We all lost water for the most part, but not most of us.
How's that snowman doing that you had in your bathtub?
He helped my toilet flush, thank God. So I didn't have that. Yeah, see, I had to.
Yeah, you had to use a chamber pot.
It was getting dire. I was like, there was a small part of me like thinking I was gonna just maybe go shit in the backyard for a couple of days because I was like, I'm getting tired of having to put snow in my toilet, man. It's a lot of work.
Put on some Mozart and
you get in the mood. Yeah, but that's so true, right? I mean, we're so spoiled now. It's like, oh my God, I can't drink the tap water. There's a boil notice, and oh my God, I can't flush my lovely toilet. Yeah, there was none of that even existed back. Like you're right.
They didn't drink water. Nobody drank water in those days because you would die.
Right. We would show up, vomit immediately, and then die. It'd be like Oregon Trail, and you would just die of dysentery 5 minutes later. Like everyone would just be dead.
Yeah, you wouldn't live unless you put a mask on. That wouldn't help you. You'd probably have to have like full on hazmat suit to survive one day in the 17th or 18th century.
The best reality show ever would be to send like Paris Hilton and Kim Kardashian back to like the 1700s. That would be the best fucking. First of all, they would like just like get there and be like, I got like, where's the Avion water? And they'd be like gagging and then they would just be like raped by like a gang of dirty cavemen. Like it would just be like the most,
while getting infected with the Black Plague.
Right. Like just getting like STDs and the plague, like all that. There'd be like one episode. That's all that there would be before they died. But I'm not saying like it's cool to go rape dumb whores, but like,
no,
that's what it would be.
Or,
and then one guy would be sitting in the corner, and then one guy would be in the corner painting it. Another guy would be writing a song about it.
You never know. They might give them STDs.
Yeah, those two particular girls, you're right.
Well, that's the other thing. If you took someone, like Mozart or Beethoven out of their time and put them in our time, they probably wouldn't survive.
Oh, no. It would not be like Bill and Ted at all. Like Beethoven would just be like...
Unfortunately. Because, come on. Bill and Ted, pretty freaking awesome. Even that last one was kind of fun.
Oh, I didn't see it. Did you ever see that, Vic? Because I think we were talking about it earlier on an earlier podcast.
Yeah. I need to check it out.
It doesn't get better than the original. Yeah.
No, the original is pretty great. Keanu Reeves was clearly born to play that role. And it's a cool premise. It's dumb as hell, but it's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
What was
cool music?
San Dimas. What was it? San Dimas or Dina?
Yeah.
San Dimas, yeah.
Dimas. With fucking, what was that? George Carlin, right? Wasn't in the original.
Yeah.
Wild Stallions. Yeah, isn't the new one like their daughters or some shit?
Yeah. Now I'm thinking maybe I just saw the preview. Maybe I didn't even see it because they're daughters, but I don't remember how the story goes, and the movie just came out. So maybe I didn't see it. I kind of want to see it though.
Yeah, I do too. And it's something I just sort of totally forgot about because all these movies come out and you might get a glimpse of it and then it's out and it's on net. You don't even remember. It's not like when things came out in the theaters and it was in the theater for, months.
Yeah, now there's
like none of that,
nothing,
right?
Unfortunately, because I kind of like going to the movies.
I love going to movies, man.
Then the one movie that came out and that they put straight on the streaming was that Wonder Woman movie, and I was looking forward to that. And
I heard it was terrible. Yeah, I heard that was awful.
Terrible. And I liked the first one. The first one was really good.
Oh, there was another one with the same girl?
Yeah, the first one. And all the DC movies, or at least the last couple of years, to me have been not very good if you compare them to all the Marvel stuff, in my opinion. And then they come out with that Wonder Woman movie and it was really good. So they come out with a new, part 2. I'm like, oh, I'm excited. Finally something good. And then it sucks. That's a letdown. Sorry, that wasn't a very exciting.
No, I feel that way about a lot of movies. I feel that way about a lot of movies where I'm just like, if I, I don't know what it is. Like, I can't get into those kind of movies as a general rule, like the whole superhero stuff. Although I did watch part of the Batman. I didn't realize how long it had been. The Batman Begins with Christian Bale, and that was like 2005.
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good. Yeah, it was good. Especially coming off of it. And I got curious, so I started reading up on some of the Batman stuff, right? Because I was like, well, what was that? And there was the one after that, the Dark Knight Rises with Heath Ledger as the Joker, which I've never seen. It's supposed to be a phenomenal performance. And obviously there was the, One Way Back with Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, which is classic. And then they kept progressively getting worse. And what they actually pulled, they had a whole nother one written after Batman and Robin. They just can't, we're not going to move forward with this fucking malarkey. Oh. And they waited until they kind of came back out. I guess it was Christopher Nolan did the Christian Bale one, but that fucking, it was funny because I was reading it, was like on Wikipedia, it was like about Batman and Robin, which is a horrible movie, and it's all like considered, blah blah blah, typically considered one of the worst films of all time.
That's rough, man.
Dude, it's a piece of shit. I think it was one of those movies that I watched 5 minutes of it. I was like, I can't do this. This is just god awful. But what are some of your favorite movies? curious now.
Well, there's the Master and Commander. That I love that movie just because it's not like your regular action movie. It actually, and just like the books that I was talking about, it really does a good. I'm a big history guy too, so it really represents history of life on a ship, like in the British Navy in like the early 1800s. Not just like ships blowing each other out of the water. There's some of that too, but just how
Michael Bay CGI
right?
history movie,
how
Pearl Harbor,
isolated you are. You know, those guys sitting on a ship, like 200 to 300 people, trapped on a little wooden shell, going literally around the world.
Talk about bad smells.
Yeah. Bad smells, diseases, shitty food. Like the first couple weeks, they usually have fresh food, but like I said, no refrigerators. Yeah. So if you're going on a journey that's like 6 months or a year long, and you're going all across the world, and you don't always have places to stop and go to Ralph's, you know, because there is no Ralph's. You got shitty food every day for months.
Do you know the movie Glory? Denzel Washington, Matthew Broderick, came out in 1989 in Civil War about the 54th Massachusetts. That's one of my favorite historical movies. We were just talking about that on the last podcast. Dude, go watch it. It's fucking awesome. It's so good.
Morgan Freeman's in that one too.
If you like
Morgan Freeman's in that one.
Morgan Freeman, yep.
I might have to check that out.
Fantastic movie. Yep.
I may have seen, because I love that whole era too. What's that other? There's two movies. I think Martin Sheen is in one.
Gettysburg. I think the first one was called Gettysburg, and then the next one was Gods and Generals.
Yeah, I have those, and they're like super long, like 4 hour
crazy
movies.
long. Yeah, Gettysburg's pretty good. I want to say that was loosely based on oh god damn it, what's that book called? Is it Hell's Angels?
Not sure, but I thought those were good.
No, that's a goddamn biker club. What the fuck?
Well, yeah, the Hell's Angels are.
God damn it! It's based on a book, and I can't think of the title of it. But yeah, Gettysburg and those. I remember that one. But no, Glory is a pretty common running time movie, and it was early Denzel. I think he won an Academy Award. Is that what you were saying, Vic, for Best Supporting Actor? It's so good.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, check that out. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah. Boy, this is really going to bug me now that I can't think of this book title. Who gives a shit? Anyway. Yeah, I mean, what are some other historical war movies you dig? Saving Private Ryan? This was a good movie.
I saw that when it came out in the theater, and I did not. It floored me because I didn't expect it. Because I don't know. I might have not seen previews, and I was like, "Well, it's Tom Hanks, so it's just going to be sappy with maybe a little bit of action." And then that first half hour, I just sat in the theater like,
dude, that movie came out and it was so intense. Like there were veterans like getting up and walking out of the movie theater because they couldn't handle it.
It's pretty intense.
It's hardcore. I mean,
growing up in Europe, I have family that were directly affected by the war in very, very different ways. So from my one grandfather that I knew, I heard terrible stories. So I can only imagine if you were in that war in whatever way and you see that movie, you'd get the fuck out of the theater because looks very real.
Yeah, no, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's a fictional movie, but it's based off of history, right? But same production company.
Well, I mean,
that opening scene was just absolutely crazy.
That's brilliant.
It's insane.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I cannot imagine being a vet of that. You know, if you were there storming Normandy Beach and then seeing that on a big screen, I'd walk out too. I already did that. Sorry.
Well, then they did Band of Brothers. Tom Hanks and Spielberg. Right?
Yeah, so they did Band of Brothers.
That was great. Too. And then they did the Pacific. Company did that was great too.
I never watched that one.
It's just as good.
I was just looking this up. Did you guys ever read any the Stephen Ambrose stuff? Because that was what Band of Brothers was based on. I guess it says here a nonfiction book that he wrote, but he had a lot of.
Well, he wrote the one
several
Black Hawk Down,
books.
right? So based on the
Ambrose didn't write
I think
that,
he
did he?
did.
Really? Yeah, and that was Ridley Scott. That was an awesome movie too, man. That movie fucking just like once they got there, it was like fucking war. There was no bullshit. It was in it.
The Killer Angels is the book you're thinking of.
That's the Killer Angels. That's the book. No, so Mark Bowden wrote Black Hawk Down.
Okay.
Killer Angels is the one that's Glory is based on?
Yes. Yep. Loose.
Let me write loosely?
No, not Glory. Sorry. Gettysburg is. Yeah.
Gettysburg. Okay.
No, Glory is based more or less. I mean, there's the fictional characters, but it's based on the true story of I think that's the 54th Massachusetts, which was like
Colonel Shaw is a
Black
real guy.
Regiment.
Yeah. Matthew Broderick's character. He's a real dude.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that movie kicks ass, man. Platoon's a classic. I always like that one.
Full Metal Jacket.
I don't know. I think it's not as bad to me now. I hated the ending of that because that sniper was killing their whole team, and I was like, "You fucking pussy, kill that bitch!" And I don't know. I mean, I've never been in war, so I have the luxury of acting like an asshole about it. But the first half of that movie, and Arlie Ermy or whatever his name is, was just so absolutely brilliant. And I mean, you guys know the story on that, right? Like he was an advisor on the film, and the original guy cast as the staff sergeant or whatever was like
he's the door gunner on the helicopter. That was the original.
Oh, really? He was. Yeah, because then what's his name? Kubrick was just like, dude, you should do this to. Is that his name?
Arlie Ermy.
Yeah. Yeah, Full Metal Jacket.
That dude is perfect.
Dude, so
Absolutely
good. So fucking.
Well,
I think that made his career, man. Like, right? They did that film, and then he was an actor after that.
Thanks.
And I know you had some stuff on the History Channel.
He's been in some other movies before that. Like he was in The Boys in Company C, so he played a drill instructor in that one too. But it was a less accurate. It was a little more dramatic, right? But
yeah, it sounds like almost like with that one, I almost feel like Kubrick might have been like, just do what you would do. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. No, he
like I think it was all none of that was scripted, right?
No, that's probably real drill instructor shit that he's saying. Yeah.
Well, you would know better than anybody, Vic, right? I mean,
it's pretty accurate.
What was that? What was that like? Yeah, I mean, really, like you just fucking get in there and tear your ass to pieces and. Is it pretty intense like that?
Yeah, so it's not just one guy. So in the movie, you'll see in the background other drill instructors running around, right? So there's always going to be 4. There's going to have a senior. He's going to have at least 2 juniors, maybe 3 for the team, for the entire platoon. And so a lot of the guys are going to be, a lot of the DIs there. There's one called that's referred to as the Strong J, the Strong Junior drill instructor, who's like the most senior one. So he'll probably be a senior drill instructor later, but those guys, the junior drill instructors, are just bulldogs, man. They just like, it's all sunshine and rainbows. You show up and, well, I went to San Diego, right? That's where I went to boot camp, right? The other one, in the movie,
is that Pendleton?
No, it's no. Pendleton's between San Diego and Los Angeles. But in the movie, they're at Paris Island. So, but same thing, right? So you get there, you go to a training platoon, you're on hold for about a week. You learn to do basic stuff, get dressed the way they want you to dress, tie your shoes the way they want you to tie your shoes, get your head shaved, make a bed, make your rack, things like that. Learn how to. And
you got to do that shit like perfect, right? Is that true? Like with the beds and stuff, is it that intense? Really?
Yeah. And first thing in the morning, you got to make it up. That's the first thing you do. And you get online. But anyway, so you're in receiving for like a few days, maybe a week, just depending on the training cycle. Then you get dropped to your training platoon. So you're carrying all your shit to your barracks, your squad bay. You get filtered into your platoon, and each platoon has their own set of drill instructors in your company. And so you'll have the company officer. He gives a speech. He's like, hey, you're here to embark on a journey. Gives you this like pretty cool speech. But then the DI comes up, and the DI is like, hey, the senior drill instructor comes up, and he's like, hey, it's my job to make you into Marines, blah, 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 and myself with my junior drill instructors, my other drill instructors, and they all, kind of line up. And so far it's not bad. The officers leave and you see the doors just kind of just very slowly closing. And as soon as they click, all hell breaks loose.
Wow.
And it's just chaos. People are yelling. You're getting shoved. We're not yelling. We're scrambling. The DIs are yelling. They're like in your face, like the brim of their smokies are poking you in the forehead. Right. So you got spit all over your face. Any guy that says like, I couldn't go to the military because I would just punch a guy. No. We had gangbangers there,
Are they just fucking terrify the shit out of you? Or, I mean, you got to know that the repercussions if you actually retaliate are going to be so hardcore though, right? I mean, did you see people ever like buck up to the officers?
No. Anybody that says that's full of shit. I'll be honest. Anybody that says that's full of shit.
Oh. Yeah. I can believe it.
I mean, I saw dudes that thought they were hard, that came in, they were little gangbangers and they were crying. I mean, like just literally like little kid crying. And yeah, I remember seeing those guys for a couple of days and they get dropped. Right.
Wow.
So,
well, you got to be. I mean, if you're a Marine, a United States Marine, then you got to be the biggest badass in the world. And the only way to do that is to make sure that, you're in shape.
Yeah. You get first thing in the morning, PT, and then you go eat breakfast, and then there's more PT, and then there's drill, and then there's just this knowledge dump of the entire history of the United States Marine Corps, the legacy, the heritage. And so that's why Marines are a little bit unique. I think we're brainwashed a little bit, but you talk to anybody else in any other services. So the other podcast that I mentioned a couple of times, I think you, Skunk, is Cleared Hot, like Andy Stump, right?
Mm-hmm.
Former Navy guy, Navy SEAL guy. And he was talking to, a Medal of Honor recipient, Kyle Carpenter. And he would talk about like the Marines are unique because you have all this stuff that's drilled in your head from basically day one. He goes, I went to a Marine base for some training and like every hall had a plaque and it was just in dedication to the memory of a Marine that did just this badass thing at this battle, whether it's, early days, 1775, Vietnam War, Desert Storm. There's always a hall that's named after a Marine. Hell, I mean, one of the main roads in Camp Pendleton's Basilon Road, John Basilon. So if you ever see the Pacific, right, John Basilon's one of the major characters in that TV series, that HBO TV series.
Mm-hmm.
Manila John, that dude was a badass. So, yeah. So Arlie Ermy, going back to Full Metal Jacket, Arlie Ermy was a drill instructor during the Vietnam War. So he did a couple of tours in Vietnam, then he became a drill instructor. And so back then, all the guys that were drill instructors were mostly infantry guys. It wasn't until maybe after the 60s, maybe early 70s that they started letting other job groups into the DI Corps. So, then you have guys that came from, the air wing, whatever other jobs in the Marines. But prior to that, it was all infantry guys and they were all drill instructors. And so you would just get your ass beat. You get your ass run down, climbing up a hill with the, with the 30-degree pitch with a full backpack, full pack, helmet.
Did you ever leave a donut in your foot locker?
No. There's no way that you can sneak out any food, man. They watch you like us.
I hope for your sake you didn't have a fucking private pile in your...
Oh, no, I did. His name was Bingle.
Yeah, oh, really?
His name was Bingle.
Oh, yeah. No. Did he like fuck Recruit everybody? Bingle. Did you guys have to pay for his shit?
We had to dress him. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was slow. Nice guy, but he was just not getting it. And so in the mornings, like, there was like 3 or 4 of us that would get up in the morning a little bit earlier or before Reveille. We would make sure he would get his boots on, make his rack, help him tie his boots, get online.
Oh, wow.
He eventually ended up getting dropped. We didn't, there wasn't a blanket party or anything like that, but like in the movie, but
beating him with soap.
Yeah. Apparently that happens.
Hey, I'm actually, Yeah, I'm not. Actually, you know what just popped in my head? Another, I think, a great movie. I think it's a Rob Reiner movie. Is A Few Good Men. But I wonder, as a Marine, you just answered my question. As a Marine, do you look at that film and be like, "What a bunch of bullshit!
Oh,
What
yeah.
a bunch of
I hate that movie.
What a bunch of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like it's a I can't think of how to describe it. Like there's an agenda behind the movie, right? You're almost like dragging, I guess in your mind, does that kind of drag the Marine Corps through the mud? Because for me, I can watch it and be like, it's a movie. It's a good film. But if I was a Marine, I could see taking offense to that. Right.
I didn't.
You seen that one, Menno? Few Good Men, Tom Hanks, Jack. No, it's a famous ass line, right?
I think I've seen it, but I can't
Tom
really
Cruise.
remember.
That famous
Tom
line
Cruise.
Tom Cruise. That famous
Tom
line where
Cruise.
Jack Nicholson goes, "You can't handle the truth," right? That one.
Oh yeah.
I have been in briefings with a division general one time at a combined arms exercise. I don't think you would ever hear a Marine officer pop off like that outside of his command. And even then,
What are you talking about, Jack Nicholson?
yeah. I mean, it's just uncharacteristic of Marine officers.
Right.
That's what I mean. To me, it's just like, that's not the Marines. No, this is
I mean, it's a
this
fiction.
is a fictional.
It's
This
fiction.
is drama, right? So, same.
Good movie, not historical or not probably accurate.
Yeah, Jarhead was another one that people, some Marines like it, some Marines don't. But that's the one with Jake Gyllenhaal, and
I saw that one.
I mean, it's about Desert Storm, and it just on one hand, it shows you just the monotony of just going out and just waiting to do stuff, right? On the other hand, I think it like the boot camp thing really bugged me. Like the boot camp scene, like it's the guy they had playing the drill instructor. First of all, he did not look like he was supposed to. Right. So he had a mustache. Drill instructors don't have any facial hair at all whatsoever. Clean shaven. So this guy is already wrong.
Tom Selleck is the drill instructor.
Tom Selleck's badass.
Magnum
But
DI.
even Magnum would have to shave to be accurate.
Well, I guess he doesn't have that mustache anymore,
No, he
does he? I
does.
see him.
No,
He's doing.
no.
Oh, does he? He's doing commercials for goddamn
He had it.
retirement
Yeah.
mortgages
Maybe
or
he's
He's
got
on
some
that
shit.
show Blue
Yeah.
Bloods.
Oh yeah, that's the
The commissioner.
Yeah,
But
Tom Selleck.
yeah, so on Jarhead, like the DI, it looks like he had he's just the worst delivery. It's like very monotone, like he's reading from a card or he's reading like from somebody's holding up a Big Chief tablet with big words written there, so and he's reading them straight off the page.
You will fall in line.
Exactly. That's the delivery. Yeah.
I know we got to wrap up here soon, but two more movies popped in my head. We had talked about Lone Survivor, I think a few podcasts back. Man, that movie fucking rocked me, dude. That was hardcore ass movie.
Did you? I think Did you watch?
I was tearing up in the theater at the end of that fucking thing. It was so intense, man. Did you ever see that, Menno?
No, who's that?
Fucking hell, that movie's
Mark
badass.
Wahlberg.
Mark Wahlberg.
Peter
dude.
Berg directed it.
It's amazing. What's the guy's name that wrote the
Marcus
book?
Luttrell.
Marcus. Yeah, it's amazing.
I've seen the title, so
Lone
this
Survivor.
is all good because I need shit to
Lone
watch.
Survivor.
We're still on fucking lockdown.
So I know Michael Bay is usually, the big explosion action movie guy, but he directed 13 Hours, which is based off of the CIA contractors that were protecting the embassy in Libya, right? And so that attack on September 11th. So that movie's based on those actual guys, and the actual guys, the contractors, they're the technical advisors. That's actually a really good movie.
I need to watch that one. I remember you bringing that up, and I forgot about
so
that one.
Those are a little more historical. Of course, there's going to be a little drama in those, but
yeah, Hollywood can never do pure like historically accurate stuff. They just can't. To do it.
I'll tell you. Well, I think Lone Survivor does a pretty good job. I think Black Hawk Down was pretty good. There's been some good ones, but a lot of times you get Michael Bay is so surprising with that. Like I don't expect someone like Kubrick or Ridley Scott to not follow all those the rules. But I was going to make a joke about the best drill instructor would be your Brad Pitt in Inglourious Bastards, right? We're gonna kill us some Nazis.
He wasn't a drill instructor. He was their officer.
That movie's
not
awesome.
a drill instructor, but he does that little speech. That movie, okay, that's a perfect example. I mean, it's Tarantino, and Tarantino has this shtick that he always kind of goes to over the top, gory kung fu,
alternate reality type of.
But I gotta say, I love that ending. It's so dumb. It's so well. He does the same thing with. Did you guys see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
That movie. Oh, so good.
It's so good. The ending was absurd. But the thing about a Tarantino movie is like you are. That's what's it's going to end that way. So you have to know that going in and be okay with it. It's going to be absolutely stupid. It's not historical. It's the complete opposite of whatever was. Yeah. I mean, boy, wouldn't that have been great if Nazi Germany would have ended in one foul swoop like that? That would have been fucking amazing. But that movie, Inglourious Bastards, has some of the greatest cinematic scenes ever, in my opinion. Like that opening scene with Christoph Waltz is so intense.
With the milk?
So good. Milk. Dude, that is just when I started watching that. Dude, he's phenomenal. Guy. Yeah, and he won an Academy Award, I think, for that. Yeah. But when I saw that movie, I was kind of like, we'll check it out. And that scene wrote me. I was like, holy fucking shit, this is good. Like it was.
What's his name?
It was so good. Christoph Waltz.
Well, he was in.
He was also in Django Unchained. Yeah, which is another good movie.
The part that just had me rolling on Django Unchained was. Him and Jamie Foxx and Christoph Waltz are on that berm, and they're waiting for freaking Crockett. What's his name from Miami Vice?
Yeah.
Damn it, Don Johnson. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's who it is.
Leading the white sheets in, right? But before that, they cut to this scene where they're trying on their hoods. And like the eye holes aren't lining up, and they're just the
that's right.
That was like one of the funniest. It's awesome, hilarious, man. I was like,
I forgot about that. Great. Yeah.
Well, shit fire.
I see the first time I saw it, I was like, and then I watched it again actually, and I was like, it's a pretty good movie, man.
But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is great. I think it's probably like my favorite DiCaprio film.
Dude, DiCaprio's awesome. The shit, man. That dude is so good.
Especially when the little girl makes him cry.
Yes.
When he's sitting there.
Yes.
I don't remember that. God.
And that whole
the one scene in that movie that stood out to me that I thought had that same kind of moment. Not as good, but that same kind of moment as the opening scene in Inglourious Basterds. Just such tension and such a great was the part where Brad Pitt goes to the ranch.
Stall Ranch, yeah.
And he goes and sees, and the whole time you're just like, this is not going to end well. So, it's so much tension. It's just so good.
Yeah, because Tarantino has that, you never know what to expect. Like there could be a character like John Travolta's character in Pulp Fiction. And then, that one scene, Bruce Willis blows him away back in,
Right. Out of nowhere. Holy shit. That movie's goddamn. I mean, we could all talk about Pulp Fiction all day long, but just that. There's so many great moments. I love when after the heroin overdose or whatever the fuck it is, and they're driving, and he's calling Eric Stoltz, and he's sitting there eating cereal, smoking a cigarette, and he's just like, "I told you not to have people call here." Oh. I'm about to tell this asshole. He's like, "Wait, are you calling me on a cell phone? Prank call."
So good. And for the longest time, I've refused to watch any Tarantino movies because I don't like his face.
He's got the most punchable fucking face.
Exactly.
You want to punch that dude in the face just because of the way he looks.
And then I finally caved in and watched Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction. I'm like, God damn it.
So good.
Awesome.
Yep. Dude, I'll tell you another one. I think he was the screenwriter. He didn't direct it, but True Romance. Have you ever seen that? True Romance is incredible.
One of my favorite actors, Gary Oldman's in there.
Dude, I was, you know what? Speaking of,
what was his name? Drexel Spivey.
Oh, he was in the Batman one. Yeah, Gary Oldman. He's such a great character actor, man. Yeah. He's such a chameleon.
Christopher Walken was in that.
What is it?
Too. What's True Romance?
Yeah, one of the greatest scenes ever. Christopher Walken,
Beethoven,
Dennis Walker,
and Sid Vicious,
or Dennis Hopper. Did he really? Who? Gary Oldman?
Gary Oldman played Sid Vicious in Sid and Nancy. And he played Beethoven in Immortal Blood.
Oh, he did play Beethoven. That's right. He's such a great actor, man. And Drexler. Awesome. That's the guy he played in True Romance, right?
Hey, White Boy Day, is it?
It's White Boy Day.
And he's also awesome in the Leon, the Professional. That's right. As the dirty cop. Oof.
The Professional with Natalie Portman.
Yeah. He's the the corrupt cop.
And
I haven't seen that.
I can't remember the other actor's name. The hitman.
French guy.
Yeah,
he was. Yeah. He was in that movie Ronin with Robert De Niro.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Jean or Jean, whatever. If you're French,
that's right. He was in Ronin.
I forget his last name. Yeah. Good actor too.
I'm actually looking that up.
Pretty intense too.
Dude, that movie has like the longest car chase ever.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Ronin.
Jean Reno.
Oh,
Jean
yeah.
Reno.
Yeah.
Reno. There you go. Oh yeah, Gary. Wow. I'll have to watch that again. I haven't seen that in a billion. Wow, 94. Shit. Natalie Portman was like 12 or something in that movie.
Yep.
Wow. Anyway, cool. All right. Well, we covered Marines, donkey shows, movies, music.
Sharon Osbourne.
I learned that every
punchable faces.
Okay, so what did we learn? Sharon Osbourne is a wicked, savage businesswoman. Although, by the way, you know what's interesting about all that you said is perspectives, right? Because reading Ozzy Osbourne's book, which I really liked at first, and then it kind of got old because he talked about the origins of Black Sabbath and it being young, and there was a lot of hilarious Ozzy drug stories. Of course, there was a lot of really funny shit. Like his firstborn child was Sharon was pregnant, and they were driving to the hospital, and Ozzy never knew how to drive for like most of his life. He didn't never drive, and then he was drunk all the time. He'd hide vodka in the stove because Sharon never cooked. I mean, these are things Ozzy says. Who knows? So he had a Rolls Royce, but he couldn't even drive it. When he's like super rich and had shit, but he couldn't drive. And so Sharon Osbourne was about to have, I guess this would have been Jack or something, or maybe the kid.
No,
they have
an
kid
older
too,
daughter
right? Before
that's
that,
never on TV.
An older daughter, so maybe it was
daughter.
that one. But so Ozzy was like driving to the hospital, and he was like not a good driver and shit, and he was like so worried like he was just gonna have a baby, he was gonna like fly out of the car, and I don't know, it's just funny as shit listening to Ozzy tell these stories. But so the first half of the book was like a lot of funny and about stuff about Sabbath and Don Arden or whatever his name was, you know, and you get into that, but the way that made it sound from Ozzy's, I guess, according to you, would be, you can't, how could he be brainwashed when you have no brain? Right?
Exactly.
At this point, I mean, Ozzy's just, it's amazing he's even alive. I love Ozzy, but I mean, Jesus.
He's more of a mouthpiece than anything.
Yeah, and he's an icon, great. But he's got, I don't know how about brain cells are left up there. But anyway, so the way that book sort of told it, what I got from it was that it was very much like, he, like you said, after Sabbath, he got fired, I think, from Sabbath. He was a total mess, living in a hotel room, watching old war movies and stuff all the time, and just blitzed. And that Sharon was the angel that swooped in and helped him get back on his feet. And then, they put together the band, and probably.
Yes.
You're so fucking right, and then they formed the band. But what made me mad was, go ahead.
Because without her, he would be dead.
Yeah, it's true. No, it's actually, you got to give her
both
some credit.
sides of the coin.
You got to give her credit.
Sharon probably scripted that whole thing, but that whole Ozzy's life being scripted by Sharon is the reason that he is alive.
Well, yeah, he'd probably be dead. He probably just would have drank himself to death in the hotel, you know? And so, like you said, I feel like there's some stuff left out, right? Obviously about the brother, and then Sharon coming to daddy and saying, no, I want this, because she saw the potential in it. And there is a charm about Ozzy. And I think they're both such strong personalities in their own different, polarizing ways, that they had this interesting drama. It always made for good press too, right? I mean, tried to kill her before he pissed on the Alamo. It's like bit a head off of a dove, bit a head off of a bat. One thing after another. Like went to talk about a record contract at some place, right? And Ozzy had a dove in his pocket for some unknown reason, or someone had given him one. Like somebody gave him a dove as a weird ass present, maybe one of the record executives. And they were in the middle of this meeting, and so Ozzy just pulls the dove out and bites its head off and spits it out on the table in the middle of their fucking like meeting. I mean, yeah. And a lot of that stuff you start to go, who knows, is it romanticized? How much of it's real? How much it's Ozzy? It's probably fucking real. But what I didn't like about the back half of that book was that when it got into, it's almost like, and they talked about Randy Rhoads and some of that early stuff a bit, but there was just like, I don't even think the words Jakey Lee were mentioned in the fucking book. Yeah. Zakk Wylde was a blurb, and it just kept being like, and then this drug story. And it's like, I don't care. Like, I want to hear about how these records were made, like So like I was a little disappointed in that the later part of the book for that. That's what I want to read, man.
This is how you really find out how at least the first 2 records are made.
Yeah, dude.
It's really cool.
I've never even heard of that. That's awesome. I'm definitely going to look into that book. Do my Amazon shopping.
There you go.
Bob Daisley.
All right. Well, shit, man.
So we got our movie recommendations, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got everything written down?
Tim's Vermeer.
Yeah,
right?
Glory for sure.
Glory. Huh? Tim's Vermeer on Amazon Prime. Yep.
Lone Survivor.
Yeah.
13 hours.
Okay. 13 hours, that's 4.
Pearl Harbor. Fine historical movie.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, what a pile of shit, man. You have to like just look at what's her name and be like, okay, I'll just look at her and tune everything else out.
That's how I would
reconcile.
Talk about a movie that covers that subject. What's the one with John Belushi? 1941.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I'd rather watch that one.
Yeah, for real. It's probably more historically accurate.
Yeah, right. And it's got John Belushi. Right. So
yeah,
there's that.
Where can people find you online? So Behold the Monolith, right? Is kind of the what's happening right now. You're about to record an album with those guys. And do you have a website? Are you teaching now individually, or how do people find you, or do you want them to find you?
On social media? Just, you can find Menno Verbaten, so you can find it on Instagram, Facebook. The music is on Spotify. My album is on Amazon. It's on all the platforms. YouTube and the paid YouTube version, whatever. It's, if there's a music platform, I threw my shit on there.
Hey, I'm going to ask you something. Speaking of like that and Spotify, I see here under your name a Christmas album appears on A Rockin' Christmas. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's pretty fucking cool. That's like metal renditions of like White Christmas, Let It
Hard
Snow.
Rock.
Cool.
Yeah, but Charlie Waymeyer on drums, Hacksaw. Remember Hacksaw on vocals?
What's is that a real? What's the
Brian Williams, vocal instructor? He used to, or still does, like a lot of stuff at MI.
Okay, I think I know who you're talking about. Do you have some bands that he played with, or no?
Not that I know.
That sounds familiar. Anyway, that's cool.
Damn Hippie Freaks. Remember that band name, the Damn Hippie Freaks? No,
that was him.
Well, Welby played drums for that for a long time as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I mean, shit. Like it doesn't seem like it, but it's been 20 goddamn years, and
I know.
Been out to LA a few times, but I really, man, the last time I was at MI, I went up there. I don't know if there was another reason too. I might have just popped in for an LAPW and hung out and probably saw Sean and stuff. But I remember meeting Ken Steiger and getting his album, his instrumental album. How long ago was that? Remember that?
Yeah. Dude,
so it's a long time ago, man.
Early 2000s.
Yeah.
Probably?
Yeah. The last time I was even down there in Hollywood was, man. Actually, I did a photo shoot with Sean, and I think I met up with Mark in 2008 when I went to the first NAMM show out there. That's the last time I've been there. Yeah.
Right on.
So, but awesome, man. So Menno Verbaten. I feel like I don't have an accent, so it doesn't sound right when I say it.
It's all good.
Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, donkey shows, whatever, all those.
Yeah. Spotify.
Behold the Mammoth, some unknown fucking band that only Victor knows.
Exactly. Yeah.
Killer
Another band. I don't know if you remember this band, if you were listening to a lot of like hardcore thrash in the early 80s, Cryptic Slaughter. You ever heard of those guys? Well, I play with those guys too, only it's under a different name. It's called Low Life. It ties in with the Aussie thing nicely.
No, but I know the name Low Life, actually. I've heard that. So is that's the same band, just under a different brand?
Same band, yeah.
Huh, okay.
We're just getting ready to record an album too somewhere this year.
Cool.
With Cryptic Slaughter, their original bass player, or the bass player that was on their first couple records, is now the bass player, or was the bass player for Ozzy Osbourne. He's now known as Blasco. He originally started in Cryptic Slaughter.
Really? Okay, I'm going to look this one up. Cool. Awesome. So you got 2 albums that you're about to hit the studio for, huh?
yeah.
Cool, man. Awesome. Well, man, congrats on all the success. And we've talked about this on the podcast. One thing that's so cool, it's like I met all these different people. Some I know that are, you know, really well, longtime friends. Other people like yourself, I've chatted with once upon a time, know in passing, know of. But, you know, to sit here and get to chat and get to know you and talk. And then also just becoming familiar with people's projects, like even having Welby on, and I had never heard Time in the Dragon, you know, and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, wow, fucking cool, you know? So I'm stoked to go check out some of this music, man.
Do it. Now, I'm curious, when Welby was on, did he go deep into the politics?
Well, yeah, you know, that was, so when we had him on, that was, man, when was that, Vic? That, right around the election, right? It probably was.
Right
oh
before.
My God. I love Welby, but I mean,
Welby's in a group. I started a group on Facebook that I haven't been too prominent in, but basically I started a group just for political discussion, and I'd put some posts and let people talk about it, and some people would, you know, be assholes, and most people are very cool, and not a very big group.
No, he's smart about it.
Very smart. But Welby was in there, and that's how we sort of kind of started chatting again, was through that. And obviously he's a you know, libertarian, and we did talk about that. Libertarian, we talked about politics, we talked about guns, and just all the crazy shit that was going on, you know? I mean,
we touched on it, but not too deep. I think
it wasn't like a rant. It wasn't full rant on podcast of a rant, but we did talk. Yeah, we did. I feel like the political conversations haven't been too prominent. We had one podcast a little while back where we got into some politics, but for the most part, we haven't been.
Right on.
You know,
yeah, politics can get pretty hairy, and you know, I think musicians. Let's talk about music some more.
No, I agree. I always let things just go where they want to go. You know what I mean? It's like I don't come in with an agenda like, I need to know what your political affiliations are. Tell me, you know, like.
Well, I was wondering that before I, signed in today. It's like, what are we going to talk about? Is there topics? Do I have to have something prepared?
No, I do podcasts exactly like I teach
cool. I like
music.
It. I
have
like
no
flow.
plan.
I like the flow. It's good. It's good.
Yeah, I think so.
It's awesome.
It's
so
just,
I'm stoked. Thank you guys for,
Thank you, man.
It's awesome.
Now we can add donkey shows to the other podcasts.
That's right. We're going to misrepresent you like we do everybody else. When the little bio comes out, it's just going to say a fan of donkey shows and a staunch Republican, whatever, a huge Donald Trump supporter.
There is no bad press, right? It doesn't exist.
No, you're right. You're right. The more people are grossed out and disgusted and hate you, they'll probably actually tune into the podcast.
Exactly. It's like, cool. I always tell people I wasn't put on this planet to make friends. I was put on this planet to make music. So
right on, man. I love the
attitude.
attitude.
If I lose a couple of friends, I'll just play music.
Hey, the only thing you need to change in your thinking is if you go on a first fucking date, just say Motley Crue's fine, fuck her, and then tell her they suck.
I learned my lesson. Like, why the fuck did it? Yeah, Motley Crue's awesome.
Yeah,
I tell you how much I love Motley Crue.
Clenching your fist under the table, like, yeah, Nikki Sixx is my most favorite bass player ever. He totally played on every album, totally.
Yeah, let's kickstart my heart.
Yeah, kickstart my heart. See, there you go. You can use those. I want to be your Dr. Feelgood, baby, dude. That's the thing. You could do dumb shit like that.
Motley Crue songs.
I want to make you shout at the devil. Yeah. Oh, babe, you've got looks that kill. Like she'll either be like, "What a loser," or she'll be like, "Oh, I'm so hot right now." Fuck.
Yeah. Right.
Anyway, this is a good time to stop and shut up. Menno, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Awesome.
It was fun.
All right, everybody. That's another one in the can. Until next time, this has been Skunk Manhattan with Victor Ramos, and we're out of here. Later.